I think we're good to go.
Okay, it is 12:04. We will convene the meeting of the Vermont Community Broadband Board on October 8th. Here in person with me is Brian Otley. Online, we have board members Laura Sibilia and Dan Nelson. Ollie is supposed to be here, but not here yet. Christine Helquist and also Rob Fish from staff. And, let's start with the approval of the amendment, or sorry, taking if there are any agenda changes. And 2 agenda items that I have to change are to add parking lot, update on our parking lot items, and also to, if we have time, to go into executive session to talk about personnel matters. Have a motion to approve those 2 changes, or I should ask before a motion, is there anything else to add to the agenda or change? Okay, motion to approve. I'll second it. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed?
Dan, you're still muted.
Okay, with that, what we have in our packets, the board minutes from Laura, it is very difficult to hear you. You sound like you're on Mars.
I'm muted.
There we go.
I'm muted. Yep, and I'm sorry. I moved to accept the agenda. Or
Okay, great.
Voted to accept it. Yep.
We can hear you better at least. Okay, let's go on to approval of minutes from September 28th and October 4th. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Nothing here in the boardroom. Dan or Laura? Nothing from Dan?
No.
No further
Okay.
discussion. No.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of both meetings. Laura, Dan, do you want a second? Dan's a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Second.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
We have a time delay.
Yeah, it's because she's on Mars.
Exactly. All right, minutes are approved. Next item on our list for the agenda is discussion of the pre-purchase recommendation.
Yeah,
And this is an executive session, and I'm wondering if you want to take this up now, or if we want to go to.
well, do we need to go into executive session? I think
I think we're going to have to,
okay.
unless I get an email soon enough. Maybe we move that to the end.
All right.
So that's
Happy to do that. All right, we'll move to the end. We do have a quorum to take up CV fiber. We can just go right down the list. What is your preference here?
Oh, yeah, CV fiber, thanks.
Right.
Sorry.
I'm in full disclosure, the CV fiber proposal is in conjunction with Washington Electric Co-op. And as an employee of Washington Electric Co-op, I do feel I have a conflict of interest. Hi, Holly.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon even.
Yeah, exactly. Because of that, I am going to recuse myself and step out of the room just to make sure that everything is super transparent and there's no issues. So with that, I'll let you take over and get me when you're ready.
Okay, so Dan, you're going to be facilitating the meeting?
Dan?
Sorry, Patty. I had many comments on minutes. And so there's many errors. So at some point, I'd like to talk about that
Okay, well, we
later.
we'll pull that in at the end of the agenda.
That'd be great.
Dan?
Yes.
Okay, you're
am,
facilitating now, Dan.
Okay. I hear Laura. This is going to be a challenge because I'm
Yes.
also remote. Laura, what did you have?
Dan, I am not going to be remote in about 5 minutes. That's all I wanted to let you know, that I'll be walking into the physical meeting shortly.
Excellent. I wish I was there. Go ahead, Christine.
Well, we had a lot of back and forth with CV fiber in terms of where they are. Rob, you want to?
Sure,
Where should we go with this?
I could take it from here. What we had discussed was just to start, let them give a brief overview of their application for people at home and to refresh us and any of the questions that were brought up, and then we will have questions. I'm pretty confident that.
Oh, sure. Jerry Diamantidis, the project manager at CV Fiber, formerly the treasurer, formerly the alternate from Berlin, been with CV Fiber when we first brought it to the towns, maybe 3 years ago now. Yeah, so our application, I believe it's pretty straightforward. We have a long-term schedule, if you will, a multi-year schedule and a multi-year perspective on getting this work accomplished. And it is very much, now that things have changed with COVID, it's very much ARPA funding centric. Our intention is to leverage those funds to get to the underserved as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And we believe that that's what we have put into our proposal. You'll see that we're doing a phased approach, that we have areas A, B, C, and D, and that those areas really drop out of our feasibility study, which was originally intended with the same purpose of getting to the underserved as efficiently and as quickly as possible. So our intention is to use the ARPA funds to the extent that we can. We also have an agreement with WEC, and if there's a possibility of leveraging the rural utility funds, we will do that as well, if that is available. The ARPA funds are certainly the first thing on our agenda, if you will. Sir.
Could you just take 2 minutes and just describe the relationship with WEC specifically? What the alliance is? I know there's a funding opportunity there through them, which is great, but also what fallback plans or contingency plans you have made in the event that either WEC's funding or there's a Vermont regulatory. Well, I guess my question is there still a Vermont regulatory decision that needs to be made in order for the WEC partnership to be productive?
I'm David Healy. I'm the delegate from the town of Calais and the chair of the Planning and Development Committee. And I had been assigned as the district's representative to WEC. So over the last 2 years, at least, we've been negotiating a memorandum of understanding, which has been signed 2 months ago to go forward with an agreement. Now, the arrangement is, if possible, WEC would seek IUS funding for $35 million to run middle mile fiber throughout the WEC district that's not already served by EC Fiber. That includes, I think it's 7 towns from NEK Broadband, 5 towns from EC Fiber, and then 15 towns in CV Fiber.
And that would all be in WEC territory.
That's all WEC's territory, yeah. So in terms of our plan, we have been planning with and without WEC in terms of how we would finance it, how we would build it, how we would design it. And to that extent, we did do a 3 CUD WEC request for funds to do a high-level design. So that's undergoing now for the whole. In our case, it's both the WEC territory and the non-WEC territory in CV Fiber, because they have to be connected.
Right.
So from that standpoint, we've had to do independent kind of alignment in terms of our planning.
One key point is that in CV Fiber's 21 member towns, WEC is less than 50% of the polls. So we're not a one-to-one relationship. It's a Venn diagram with a fair amount of overlap,
Right.
but it's not a one-to-one.
And so that's where we're at right now. We're in the process of developing an agreement, a formal agreement with them. The issue that's come up with the Public Service Department is that what guarantee does WEC have to guarantee their lease payments from the 3 CUDs? And so that is still up in the air. I mean, the way it's going to happen, if WEC gets its funding, they're going to be building, over time, over a 3 to 5 year period.
If I could. So the concern about the funding from the CUDs, I mean, Russ is going to pay for this buildup,
Correct.
but is it a loan?
Oh, yeah.
It's a loan.
Oh,
It's a
sorry.
low interest loan.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a 35-year loan. So
Okay.
it makes this pretty, in terms of money.
It's very
a good
affordable,
deal.
but it still has to be, a loan
Correct, still has to be paid.
Okay.
And so the
And you
reason,
have an agreement that was signed in September, I believe, but that's kind of an agreement to agree.
correct.
Okay.
So the issue is really how much revenue can we generate fast enough to pay off our portion of the lease payments? And from our, the first year is probably going to be a little close. I think it's doable. We haven't seen all the numbers from WEC yet to decide what's it going to be, and then do we pay per mile as constructed? Because the way the RUS loan works is they have to borrow the money to construct and get reimbursed from. So it's a two-step process for WEC. So that still has to happen. The issue with the loan itself, the PUC commission, the Public Utilities Commission, has to rule that it's okay to apply for the money. So the department is the one that's advising the Utilities Commission.
So there's regulatory question. There's two regulatory questions on the table. One, the ability of the CUDs to pay. And that's in, am I remembering it correctly? It's kind of been, the language I saw was like, it's a guaranteed revenue stream to WEC for some number of years, right?
Correct.
Okay. And is there the flexibility, like you said, David, to be able to ramp that? So in the early years, when you guys are still signing up subscribers, the commitment is lower, and then it escalates as you have more history and more customers under your belt?
So the plan is to add customers as the line is built. Now, whether it's going to be able to, the initial, are we going to get a 70% take rate in month one? Probably not.
Right.
But by the end of the first year, my guess was if you're underserved, you'll be joining our network. I've had so many phone calls. It's like, when are you coming? When are you coming? So that's sort of the status with WEC. If it doesn't happen, we will use the grant funds to build in lieu of WEC. WEC would like us to use as much grant money as we can to reduce their loan request, but we don't know what that is yet.
Okay.
So
Let me
it's
ask you
complicated.
a kind of a leading question. What did your business plan reflect?
A business plan was done without WEC. But it was, borrowing lots of money as well.
Right.
So we need to, our business plan was written a year and a half ago. So it's, as soon as we get an operator on board, we'll be updating the business plan, the financial models and all of that. And so that's in the next, we hope to have a developer operator on board by December 1st. We're negotiating with two great teams right now. So we're pretty sure we have, even our original business plan showed it was viable.
Yeah, that's
We
right.
were successful with the original
At a
business.
40,
plan.
at like a 40% take rate.
So the point being, that's right, was the leading question.
Yeah,
The point
sorry.
being,
Do you know timing on when WEC will try to resolve these two open issues with the regulators?
They're hoping to have the loan approved by the PUC by the end of the year.
Okay.
Now, whether that can happen or not,
Okay.
I'm sure they don't know what the PUC's agenda schedule will be, but that's their goal.
Okay.
And the draft application has already gone to RUS, and they've gotten some preliminary, waivers on environmental constraints and some other things. Steve is on the
yes, Steve, you have a chair.
call if he wants to weigh in on this, if you want to let him.
Okay, and then just so I have it right, so this will be, it'll be middle mile. So they'll be going roadside, but they're not going to do the service drops. That they'll wait for the CUD to do the service drops.
Correct.
Got it.
So I'm still confused.
Yep.
So if you get your grant money, it reduces the amount of WEC loan funding from RUS. But actually, if you kept the RUS loan in place, it just means you get to fund more. And to your point, only 51%.
Correct. And that's, you made a good point, because to build out a network is $49 million. And there's not enough.
There's no one source that covers the bill.
Right.
So
Right on.
WEC shouldn't get their hopes up that this
Correct.
grant
I
money
would
is,
say that.
okay,
Yeah.
yes.
Steve may disagree, but.
Right, Steve?
Steve?
Do you want me to weigh in? My name, by the way, is Steve Knowlton. I'm the new president of the board of Washington Electric. And I've been active in pursuing this broadband initiative for over 3 years now. So I think David, Jerry have summarized it nicely. One thing I want to just make sure, because we've talked about WEC getting revenue from this. WEC is doing this for 2 reasons. One, it's applying for an RUS smart grid loan. It's according to RUS and according to our lights, it's meant for improving the electric system of WEC because that's what the loan is for. And so this is combined with putting out building on a middle mile system that David described. And then WEC would also use it for connecting to its advanced meters for doing, specialized rates, improving the operation of the electrical system, etc. The revenue that WEC is generating from the leasing this to the CUDs is not going to generate a profit. This is being done. The intent is to do this at cost, in the sense that the CUDs would in their lease rates would pay off the debt service that WEC incurs to pay off its loan, and any other the administrative costs of administering this process. It's not intended to generate any. It's not intended to generate any profit for utility. The utility feels strongly that providing rural broadband to all its members is a benefit in its own right, and it's not trying to discourage the build out by charging the CUDs to generate a profit for the utility. Well, that in a nutshell is the ethic behind what we're. Yes, they're fully succeeded. The guarantee of the loan payments is a significant issue for the Department of Public Service, and I presume the PUC, who will be looking to guarantee that the electric ratepayer is not going to be under undue risk to pay off the loan in the event that one or more of the CUDs delays or defaults in the lease payments. To do this, we're going to be we're going to proceed with going from the MOU that has already been discussed to a contractual relationship where that will involve collaborating on a detailed design. And that is going to, as David mentioned, we're gonna have to synchronize the building of the middle mile with the CUD's capability of building out service drops to its members, so that they can, as WEC builds the middle mile, the CUDs will be capable of generating revenue to pay off the lease rate. I think there's going to be some tactical issues to make sure that to minimize the risk that has already been discussed. I should probably stop here and make sure that I'm not blathering on and let you ask questions that you want to have answers to that I may be able to provide answers to.
Laura.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Steve. I just wanted to check back. I recall testimony from WEC when they had done their analysis about whether or not they could participate in this, that they thought they could do it with minimal impacts to rates. And I want to check back that is still the case, when we're talking about not making a profit on this, et cetera, or has that changed? Do you know if that's changed over time, your position on where you're at with this?
Well, if you figure that, if you just do a ballpark estimate of what the the cost of the loan to build this out is, you know, the annual payments are roughly $1.5 million a year for the 35-year loan. And so that's roughly 10% of WEC's revenues. So you can figure out that if WEC had to do this on its own, it would have to jack up the electric rates by 10% as a ballpark estimate. And we would have to presume that the PUC and the DPS would not think highly of that approach. So, you know, that's the magnitude of the cost we're talking about for a 35-year loan, is roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.5 million debt service.
I think that.
And so the analysis, I guess my question, Steve, just to be really clear, is the analysis has not changed, that you have found a way to move through this that will have minimal impact. No, Brian shaking his head. So
I mean, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but the PUC still has to weigh in on this.
yeah,
So we don't, that's up to the PUC to decide if they're going to allow WEC to engage in these activities. And there's good cost process in the PUC to do that. So,
right.
and it sounds like it's in process. They're working on it. So that's, I would defer to them to make that judgment, not us.
And I think it's appropriate to say the entire WEC board of directors, if they had that situation put in front of them, they would also, because we represent the board is consisted of members. I think we would look at this is something that the members would want to do. We are planning, we're actually scheduling a member vote for the near future anyway, but you know, as a co-op, we really, for something of this magnitude, we really need to poll the members.
Okay, thank you. I have one other question regarding your discussion around needing to have some tactical strategies, working with the 3 CUDs to kind of manage as you guys are laying out and they're building out. What is the thing that we should know, that this board should know about the status of those discussions for developing those tactical strategies?
Glad
he froze.
I may not be answering I may be circling around to answer your question. The main thing this board needs to know is that the guaranteeing of this loan, the payment of this loan at its scheduled rate, is an issue of big importance. It would be very problematic if the CUDs, one or the other of the CUDs, went into default and that WEC had to find some other way to make its payments RUS by having the ratepayers subsidize this, because I'm pretty sure the PUC is not going to be allowing that to happen at any significant level. So I would say that's one of the major concerns that I would like to have this board consider, is what are creative ways of trying to ensure that the CUDs, if they have collaborators such as WEC or any other utility, that that utility's investment, which is based on the electric business, not the telecommunication, that those subsidiary partners are also considered in either policy or legislation to ensure that they are made whole.
Okay, Dan, I don't know if you would allow, but David actually had another answer to my question. Just about strategies.
I'm sorry, I'm first off, I'm fighting a cold, so I'm not in the room for everyone else's safety, and I have I have a very narrow perspective of what's going on in the room, so I appreciate all what you can do there.
So the technical answer, the technical plan. So we are jointly doing the high level design. We'll jointly do the detailed level design. And to keep things moving with our earlier pre-construction money, we've been doing pole inventories, mostly in the WEC territory. We have 5 towns almost completed. And this pre-construction grant we have before you right now is to do 12 more towns?
12 more towns.
Yeah. So we're trying to keep ahead doing the planning to get the construction going,
Who is we?
the CUD. So
CV fiber.
CV fiber.
Yeah.
And we meet, CV fiber meets with Washington Electric Co-op every week
That's
to go over
where a lot of my
how we're doing
questions.
and how we're
Yeah,
progressing.
okay.
And we've developed a really good relationship in that process.
Great. Thank you. I'm done, Dan.
And just if I can finish up with Laura's point about the dovetailing of WEC and CV fiber, I would echo what David said, is that CV fiber and WEC are working through the high level design plan and will work in tandem with any detailed design, because I think we both know it's critical to work hand in glove on this to make it a success, to make it as low risk as possible.
Cool. Holly?
I have a three-part question, or I have three questions in one part. The first goes back to David. You've gotten grants of over $1 million, and you've done poll surveys in 5 towns. Have you done poll surveys in areas other than WEC territory?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
No,
we
we
have
do-
Green
yeah,
Mountain Power
Green Mountain
poles,
Power,
Okay.
consolidated poles.
Okay, it just wasn't clear to me. The second question goes back to Steve. Steve, with all due respect to the Public Service Board, it's hard for me to understand where the convergence of telecommunications in the electric world stops. Some of my colleagues here who serve in the electric field may know more about this than I do, but I see this as an opportunity to continue to upgrade WEC service, and I'm a customer, so thank you. Upgrade WEC service using smart meters that's paid for by CUDs. I don't see it as a public service that it's only for the CUDs or the public. It is a hand in glove, as you've said. And so I hope that the Public Service Board wouldn't see this as just something that you're doing for CUDs. And certainly the purpose of the loan is not just for CUDs, it's for the net system, right?
That's correct. It's a smart grid loan. I couldn't agree with you more that we should, despite all the possible challenges and obstacles we face, we at WEC have looked at this as a window of opportunity to make progress on 2 fronts, to help solve 2 problems. I mean, I think it's a fact that if WEC wanted to update its communication system to carry out smart grid activities, and had to build out a fiber system throughout its network, throughout its territory, all on its own, it wouldn't pay off. There wouldn't be a way to do it that would financially make sense. Doing this in tandem with the CUDs, we regard this as a window of opportunity that exists at this present time. The need for doing smart grid stuff in terms of WEC's electrical plant is not critical at this point. We have a system that works, and it's not needed to be updated within the next 3 years. Maybe within the next 10, I'd have to talk to our engineering staff to be sure on that, but that's my impression. As I say, this is an opportunity that we can help solve a problem, a challenge with telecommunication availability to our rural members. You may remember the DPS report of 2019, which stated that WEC's service territory was 72% underserved in terms of telecommunications, in terms of broadband. That's the highest proportion of any utility service area in Vermont.
So Steve, I get it, and it's pretty clear that you're underserved. I can tell you I'm often underserved at my house. So my point as we get to to this question is about contingencies. And, you know, in our consideration of a pre-construction grant for another CUD, we actually put funding in for contingencies that helped ensure meeting obligations. And I'm just looking at my colleagues here to say, you know, would it be maybe a wise idea to set aside a portion of pre-construction funding, or should it go to construction funding, to ensure that the timing doesn't goof this whole thing up? Because that contingency is so important on so many different levels.
And I think that leads to the question earlier about the business plan. It seems like those two are intertwined. So if you're part of your funding, I assume, is to update the business plan. That's probably where these contingencies need to be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, I heard from David, the business plan pencils without WEC. The
Yes.
business plan is better with WEC,
Absolutely.
and everyone's hoping that WEC is successful in clearing the hurdles they're trying to clear to get that funding. But that you're prepared to go to construction either way, regardless, you know, regardless of which outcome WEC is able to produce, right?
That's correct. And you had mentioned timing and contingency, and really getting the pre-construction work done and in hand to the extent that we can now puts us in a better position to be able to take advantage of whatever loan as it comes down the pipe.
But I'm trying to say, Brian,
Yeah.
that, and pardon me, Dan, I'm jumping back in, that if we need to fund a contingency, not just that their business plan pencils, but rather that if they're going to commit themselves in this WEC scenario, that we need to make sure that their revenue stream is actually timely. And I'm wondering whether we should hold a portion of funding for that, or am I worrying too much about the sequencing?
I think my point was that it's the other way around, is that we need to get the pre-construction, we need to get the detailed design, we need to get.
And then
that
you won't
under
worry
our
about
belt.
that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I take comfort in the fact that you've worked it out both ways, and and we've got a time horizon that's going to allow you to decide which way you're going to go once the events materialize, right?
Just, excuse me, but for
But
the
you, before you're on, but I think we said this with Maple, like, I think we sent this message with Maple is every CUD should have contingency built, and then this will come during construction.
Yes.
Every CUD should have contingency built into construction, because world events right now, whether it's
Right.
labor, materials, whatever, are such that there's no way with the time horizons you have, you can be, you know, pinpoint accurate on your cost estimates. And it is very common in projects of this sort that you have contingency, right?
Absolutely. I work in the large scale construction industry, and contingencies are a critical component. There's a penciled in contingency that you start with, and then you do a cost schedule risk analysis, and you pinpoint what your risk factors are and come up with an informed contingency.
Are we considering other questions for CV? Dan, are we ready for other questions?
I think so. My questions actually were just answered on that. So with or without, I just want to be clear, with or without the WEC contribution, the schedule stands. It's just on the, yes, I see the heads shaking. Okay. Yeah, Laura.
So just with regards to Waterbury, how are you going to treat them? Do you know how you're going to treat them? Are they going to be like kind of at the end? Like what's the
They
deal
are
there?
now area D. They're at the end.
Okay.
They're 97% cable served right now,
Yep. Okay.
but that's not going to be good enough in the end. So, yeah.
Okay.
And I've been meeting with them tonight to kind of better understand their expectations and for us to lay out where they are in terms of service and where they might spend some of their ARPA funds when we get there. But I mean, because, you know, because there's some-
Identify yourself for the record.
Sure, Jeremy Hansen, CV Fiber Chair. So because they were so late to the game, when they finally came to us and said, we would like to join you, we were very candid with them and said, we've already started planning. And so we kind of necessarily had to tack them on towards the end.
Okay, thank you. Just a curiosity kind of.
I have another just quick question on another town. Is that okay? It should be really quick. So I have a question about Elmore. From what I can tell, looking at the maps, the lines don't reach Elmore from the south. What is your plan? And if they move to another CUD, I know they are covered in this pre-construction grant, but will that data be available to any CUD?
I think the data will be definitely available to whichever CUD. Actually, it may end up getting split between NEK Broadband and Lamoille, because both of them are connected on each side of Elmore. And we are working with the three of us that come up with a solution, and the town. The town has to decide what it wants to do. It's certainly in the town's advantage to join the other two from a construction standpoint. It's a lot cheaper for them to connect into their networks than for us to extend. We'd end up having to go into the other CUD's territory to get to them to begin with. So they were desperate. That's why I think I don't know, Jeremy probably knows the history of how Elmore ended up with us, but yeah, there's no power. I think there's a 5-mile gap between Worcester and Elmore in terms of transmission lines, distribution lines.
Thank you for letting me check that.
So they're kind of in a, can I just clarify that? They're just,
Yes.
so they're really still in a transitory kind of play, like the 3 CUDs, it sounds like, are still trying to figure out what's the best way to approach them?
Correct.
And are you doing that like collaboratively or
Yes,
competitively?
Collaboratively. Oh, no, there's going to be a lot more collaboration between CUDs.
Elmore is beautiful, but I don't think they're fighting over it.
No, I just, you know,
In answer to the question, there's going to be a lot of inter-CUD. Like NEK Broadband has asked us, can you serve this road in Peacham? Because it's really connected to you.
yeah, I mean, it's just, every once in a while, I like to just point out and touch those things that are so new, that we have a rural town where we have 3 different entities trying to figure out how to help them. It's remarkable.
Elmore's current delegate to CV Fiber is meeting right now and having conversations with both of the other neighboring CUDs to try to nail this down and make a recommendation to the select board so that they can choose how they want to move forward.
Great, thank you. Done, Dan.
So this goes back to a conversation we had a couple weeks ago about wire centers and town boundaries. So can I infer that your response, that's true? Because I think Woodbury and Cabot fall in the same bucket, that you were working on those fringe areas where wire centers don't match. I mean, we ran into it in Bolton, right? And Elmore falls in that bucket. And I can't see what the responses are.
Well, there's a number of towns that fall in that bucket. Just explain that basically what Elmore is served by Morrisville Water and Light and served by Hardwick Electric. So that's the issue, is you want to follow the power lines. So we're going to see this in multiple towns, but it's nice to see you.
So Woodbury is Hardwick Electric and West. Cabot is Washington Electric Co-op and GMP. So we got a good mix.
Okay, so I see there's strong relationships here, but when we go for pre-construction grants, you will be doing the planning. How, and maybe this is small potatoes, but how is that value traded off between these CUDs? Or is there any consideration of that?
We've already started some collaborative planning with our neighboring CUDs. For example, the grant that we received was the WEC 3 CUD. That's the title of it, the initial planning grant that we got. So we're in a very collaborative relationship with our neighboring. There's no competitiveness at all.
Yeah, we have a formal memorandum of understanding between the 3 CUDs.
You do.
So I should be clear, though, 3 different CUDs that we're really talking about here. We're not talking about Lamoille in this case. The 3 CUD agreement is EC Fiber, CV Fiber, and NEK Broadband.
That's the MOU. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
So I have a couple of questions. We're kind of talking a little bit about the the towns that you're serving, and you gave us some data about those towns. I have to admit that I didn't understand all of it, but nowhere did it correlate whether that data is syncing with the Department of Public Service data. It didn't state it in the application. So we need to know what your baseline
It
is.
came from the Department of Public Service.
I think
Check.
it's in a footnote at the very bottom
Is
of the
it?
table in the
Did I
smallest
just miss
font
it?
you can get. It's pretty sure.
Thanks. Okay, that's good. Okay, it's DPS data. That's great. And then also what we've requested others to do is where you report your funding, which is, I added yours up to something like 1.1 million, is how much of that is left? What's your reserve?
We have.
That's what we've been asking others, so I'm just trying to be consistent.
That's not a problem. I mean, so we have the 160,000 grant. I don't remember, I forget the number for that one is 01, I believe, at the end. And that one is fully obligated, and whatever the report was that I sent you, 95% spent, something along those lines. Then we have the 240,000, and that one is for the high level design and pole inventories. And that one is the pole inventory part is 100% obligated. We haven't sent any invoices in yet, but the work is over 50% complete. And then the high level design aspect of that, including the 3 CUD grant, the 09 grant, that is obligated and is the work should be finished, scheduled for 31 December. It is now approximately 20% complete. Again, this is from the report that I had sent to you. And that covers.
Are we saying that you have all the information to tell us what's remaining? I just am looking for consistency in how we address this question with our applicants.
I'm happy to share you the report, but this only covers the funding that's from the department, not any other funding.
I know, but that was true before as well.
Yeah, we asked Maple for the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's just reconcile. You're hitting all the spots. If we could just get a follow-up, just like literally one more column.
Yeah, one more column in that chart would have done it.
Amount spent or amount
Oh, okay,
made.
didn't realize that was part of the.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right. We probably didn't communicate it. That's okay.
No
Yeah,
problem.
that would be great. It just helps us say that, yeah, they're doing this and look at it, they're, or it's 1.1 million is in the bank and we don't know what happened. Okay, just saying, that's the reason, saying that's the reason. I'm also, I'm really interested in the overbuild questions. So, and in my mind, it comes in two parts. There's a lot of concern in the legislation about overbuilds and how we treat them. I am also curious, when you go through your district and say that specific areas don't have 25.3 broadband service, how did you determine that? And is it because the carrier doesn't allow it, or was it tested in whatever facilities are there? So if you could give us a little overview about how you're dealing with what is quite a complex environment of distribution.
I mean, we started with in our feasibility study and in the current high level design, we're using the department's broadband speed data by e-site location.
It's from the department.
And our original feasibility study was designed to reach the underserved. Where it had to go through cabled areas, it had to, and it just did. And it's not, I mean, I don't have the exact number of cabled versus underserved in the preliminary feasibility study. The next step would be the focus will be on underserved, getting there as expeditiously as can. I can't tell you how many overserved people are going to get reached through that process, but that's the method of the planning for that process.
Okay. I don't have that background in your in your business plan. So thank you for explaining that. Are there areas where you will be directly competing or offering service in competition with another ISP?
Well, yes.
Yes, of course. Just saying. Okay.
Is that incidental to your plan?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Can you define how you know that it's incidental to your plan?
So if there's a spur in Worcester, right? There's a run of a town, and the only way that you can get there is by crossing the place where there's already been, Comcast or Charter cable that's been put, but it's otherwise, but they didn't extend it farther down Hill Street, right? So in order to get there in any universe, they'll have to build over those places as well, and to try to sort of put together the network in a way that makes sense, but that actually reaches all of the underserved folks. And that's something that we could have something much more concrete come out of the high level design. I mean, we have a reasonable idea from the feasibility study and from some of the maps, the early maps that we have, what some of those spots are. But we'll have more concrete, like actual mileage and residence addresses passed once high level design is done.
It was a high level, the feasibility study, I think, was submitted with that packet. There's some maps and tables in there that show exactly what service was available by the number of people in that planned line. And the majority was underserved, but we did have all the data there.
I guess I'm just, the follow-up question to that is just, in your business plan, how many already served people are you dependent upon taking your service?
25, 3 people.
Yeah, 3 people.
I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Yeah,
But
because
it's not-
we're talking about timing and that you're gonna make, it's all good with or without RUS. I'm just curious what your dependency is there.
The strategy, of course, is to get to in your example, the strategy is to get to those underserved people.
Right, I got that.
So,
Sexual
and that's, we wouldn't be crossing over a cabled area, but for the fact that we need to get to those underserved people.
But for your sustainability plan, for your business plan to work, do you need any of the customers that show existing service at 25 to take your customer service?
In the spreadsheet on the financial forecasts, we have, I think, I have to look back at it, 15 or 17% take rates for
That's what I wanted to know.
cable
Thank you.
areas, and much less I don't think we identified any areas where we're actually building 100, but that's using actual take rates as were communicated to us from EC Fiber and their experience when they've overbuilt 25-3 places.
So there's two sets of take rates. There's the take rates for the underserved and the take rates for the folks that already have cable.
Right,
And
and you're saying 15%.
it's much lower for the folks that have cable.
Yeah, most of the plans I've seen have been around 24%, so you're being more conservative.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan?
Thank you. I see, is it Barry has his hand up? Oh, I'm sorry, Laura, I did see, did you have your hand up? I'm not in the room, so help me out here.
I'm happy for Dan to go, but I do have a question, or Barry to go, but I do have a question.
Okay, Barry?
Muted, Barry.
You muted me.
Still.
You're muted.
Yeah, no.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to, Barry Bernstein, on the board of WEC, and till recently the board president. And Steve and I have been involved in this project for 3 years. The two comments, a couple comments I wanted to make. Sorry, I came in a little late. I thought this was actually starting later. One is the reason WEC's board decided to come in was primarily for lowering the end cost to our members who are the CUD's customers, because by borrowing at about a 2.5% spread between what we are going to be borrowing and EC Fiber borrows now through the regional revenue bonds, it's about a 2.5% spread. You're talking about a 15 to 20 million plus savings over 30 years. So that's just a ballpark, but that's the dollar savings that hopefully will be passed on in terms of lower monthly rates. The other thing is we got involved because we were convinced by our getting the loan that we could expedite the time frame in which this actually happened. There's still a question how much grant money is going to be available and when. And in our early discussions with the CUDs, particularly EC Fiber and CV Fiber, it was their feeling that if we came in, we would be able to get our members served in 3 to 5 years as opposed to longer. So those were two of the really motivating factors for us trying to bring our smart grid timeline up. Steve said 10 years, where, you know, we would start probably doing this within the next 5 years or something like that, because the DPS wants us to be able to offer more time of rate, time of use options to our members. The other thing I just wanted to mention in connection with what Jerry said is, having also been in the construction business for a long time, we are actually asking for a 30% contingency, which is extremely high in our borrowing package. But RUS and everybody we talked to agreed that this is really an unstable market. You know, you wouldn't offer that much, you wouldn't put that much contingency on a construction job where you knew most of what was going on. So we're faced with both those. We hope we're going to be able to not have to borrow that much, and if we don't, that will save everybody. But if the prices are up, we want to be able to meet the need and not have to go back for additional money. So I just wanted to offer those comments to you. I don't know if reason Christine had asked us, Steve and I have had discussions with Christine, is one of the big, and they tell me if somebody else if Steve already mentioned this, but the big thing with the DPS and the PUC is they want to know that if anything happens with the CUD, that we won't be left having to transfer the lease payments, the cost of the loan, onto the electric ratepayers, because by law we're not supposed to do that. We're not allowed to do that. So that's why we're trying to look for something, a vehicle. And I heard the mention of maybe you holding something in pre-construction or construction funds, but it's really for the state to be able to come in and help the CUDs before they get into a bankruptcy situation, and we're seamless about being able to make the payments for the loan, and not disrupt any service to the customer. So those are just the comments I wanted to share. Thank you.
Yeah, Barry, I think we covered that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're muted, Dan, but I think you're calling on me.
Good job.
I have a question about, so the CV territory, it's got a pretty dense 25/3 cabling, probably more dense than most places, you know, a little bit in the Bennington, the southwest corner, you see that there. Kind of even more isolating the folks that aren't there. So when we're talking about the spurs, Jeremy. So I have a question for you or for staff, if you're able to, or even WEC, if you're able to. Are you seeing any evidence of increased activity around line extensions or new service out in CV? Actually, I'd love to hear from you and from staff and from WEC, actually. And no is fine, or yes.
Line extensions a little bit. I mean, I haven't personally heard of too many, but aside from consolidated overbuilding cabled areas in Montpelier, Barrie, East Montpelier, some other, really just taking the 25/3 areas and building fiber in those spots.
Okay. There is one CUD where there is, and I don't want to say it publicly, but we can go into executive session if we want to know the names, but there is one CUD that's seeing direct competition that's going into the same area they want to build. And actually,
I don't want to say it publicly because
the name of the,
why?
Well, because I haven't got permission from her to say it publicly.
But it's a
So the point is,
visible fact on the street. It's not
Yeah,
a secret.
I don't really know. I don't,
Okay, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but
yeah, I am uncomfortable because there is one CUD where that is indeed happening, and if they feel like speaking up here, they can. But we've been reported this, but I don't know whether it was in
that was
confidence.
you just heard it, and that you didn't see it.
From the CUD, yeah.
I mean, the nature of my question is because I've heard this before about CV, like they're going head to head maybe with the people that are there, which I find is an ironic thing. But when I look at how densely that cabling is, and just trying to think about what's happening there. So what are the reactions to the community organizing and trying to get coverage, the communities? So that was the nature of my question. Is there any reaction from the existing providers there? So
We're for the areas that we have folks in the field right now doing pole inventories, so the towns know they're there, people driving around, everybody knows they're there. Those really aren't the areas where the concentration of activity from the incumbents is happening. That's really more in the Montpelier, Barry, the main lines in and out of Berlin. That's and that's not where we're focusing. That's our area D.
So the reaction is just continuing to double down on the population centers. Is that the reaction?
At present, past performance doesn't indicate future returns. So, if one of the incumbents changes gears and they start building out there, with knowledge of what we're doing, that could happen.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Can I actually follow up on that? We haven't talked anything about RDOF, Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. I know there's a lot of RDOF in your area. Could you explain what your approach is for those areas where they were won by a competitor potentially?
So the plan is to reach out. We've approached one of them directly and given them 4 options where we would serve for them, we would lease to them. The other one, sort of unfeasible, we'd pay the penalty if they withdrew. And the 4th one was, no, we'd have to figure that one out. But the penalty is pretty low.
Well, the 4th was some permutation.
Some permutation of those 3. And the one we've been talking to still hasn't been approved by the FCC yet. So the rate that firm is moving, we got a lot of underserved people. So, we don't have a great answer for that at the moment, but we are working on it. We think there'll be some solution as we go forward.
What do you think about it?
So Dan, if you go ahead, if you and Brian, I've had a shot, but if you and Brian don't have a question, I've got 4 or 5 questions for staff and 1 more question for CV. You're all set?
Go ahead. I don't have anything that's critical here.
So you do a good job with this phraseology in your build out, but it never says.
I think you made that word up.
Oh, no. Eisenhower did. So the question for me in the application is, it never actually says 100%. And my good colleague, Laura Sibilia, has educated me on how important it is to have the goal of 100% served in the district. And I just would love you to comment on that.
Sure, I'm happy to comment. This was something that was one of our first orders of business when we were created in 2018. We spent a lot of time wordsmithing and getting to the bottom of it. And on every sheet of our letterhead has the word universal service, everyone. So there's no.
So I just want to make sure that everybody's got a different idea about what a universal service plan states, but your goal is 100%.
Universal. It is universal. Okay. Every premises.
Great to have that on the record.
And what I read was that they're going to get 95% completed by 2024 and then hit the rest. Is that correct?
The intention is to get our underserved first. Absolutely. That is the way.
And I saw those words, but I didn't know what the rest meant. So thank you. Okay. So More for staff here than for CV directly. So I'm a little confused about this application in terms of housekeeping. We have an application, then we have some responses to questions. How are we going to document what the application was so that we have the record of what's the application? I'm unclear.
Well, I think we asked the questions based on the application, but all that becomes one document, right? You know,
I don't know.
We're
That's why I'm asking.
allowed to
We're allowed to ask
negotiate
questions,
with applicants, and I would say that that's part of the negotiation.
Okay,
The
and we're
governing
putting it in a
document-
record someplace.
Yes, it's all going to be in a grant file. So we have to do with
Okay.
any of these communications. The record of law, the final record is whatever is in the grant agreement, for how much we approve, what they're supposed to do, what those conditions are on.
Okay.
So the grant application is only what they're putting forth, not what we necessarily approve.
So for the other board members, one of the reasons why I asked that question is because Rob and I have been having fun with the grant document itself. And some of us think that the application should be appended, and some of us don't think that that's necessarily a good idea. And so I just need to understand how we're going to keep our ducks in a row in terms of what was in the grant. And so your reference is, Rob, that anything that we need from these emails has to show up in the grant document.
The full scope of work and the budget need to be in the grant agreement. So that allows us to continue negotiating until we have a fully executed grant agreement. My concern with attaching the initial applications is that isn't the final word. The final word is the final grant agreement.
Yeah, that's the discussion Rob and I have been having. We think basically the grant agreement should capture everything. All these are discussions, including the application, are information for what we need to put into the grant agreement. Well, we believe the wording of the grant agreement ought to be comprehensive.
Right. So here's then another question that I have, and I'm looking at my colleagues here. So this is just a process question because of, we're kind of new at doing this. And I'm looking at staff recommendations, and the statements are quite conclusory. And so, is this, I'm just going to pull a rabbit out of a hat here, is there a plan for affordable broadband? Yes. And I'm just not sure whether we as a board have done our work if we haven't heard from staff based on what. Or, some of the statements are very, I'm satisfied, or I love this grant. Well, or I love this application, but I'm concerned about what the evidence is.
Let me just say that I think, and I'm not sure we've resolved this entirely as a board.
Yeah.
But I think our first job in affordability is building the network at the lowest cost.
I'm not focused on affordability. I'm focused on our process.
Let me just respond to those questions. All the Act 71 questions that were put in there, because this is pre-construction, not construction, is to make sure that is part of your decision-making process, that is part of your discussion process, that is part of your business plan. When it comes to the construction grants, that's when we need to see the details and the evidence. Right now, we would have a problem if you didn't say anything about resiliency or redundancy. But we know this is part of the process to getting to where you submit something to us that answers those questions and is convincing and can be documented in terms of the steps you are taking.
So I hear you, and I get that. I'm looking at us, and I'm just saying, okay, have we deliberated on the criteria for a pre-construction grant? Once we have the staff tell us, check, or whatever the response is. I don't know if you looked carefully at the staff grant review documents, but they're conclusive. They're not,
Right, I hear what you're saying.
It's okay. So are we okay? I'm asking a process question. for board members.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like my responsibility was to look at the grant, look at the steps, basically review and scoring of it. And if I had a difference of opinion on any of the areas they scored, to raise it here, and we work through it here. I thought that was the process.
Yeah, and we also had access to the full application
Oh, yeah,
ourselves.
Rob sent everything out.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we have an obligation to review that. And then we've asked staff to review and come back with a recommendation. So I'm fine with their recommendation being
Agreed.
inclusive in a lot of places.
Yeah, I'm only looking to say, I disagree with this recommendation. If I see a difference, if I don't see a difference, then I'm silent on staff recommendation because it's consistent with what I saw.
So
The survey was mostly to provide a guide.
Yeah.
To like highlight, if we saw there being a major issue, to highlight it and for you to focus.
Yeah.
To focus more attention on that issue.
totally great, and I'm so glad I work with such diligent people. So then there's the question of, I'm sorry, I worry about these things.
I'm so happy you do.
Yeah. So then there's the question about how much funding was requested. Did that get resolved?
Yes.
They submitted a redlined application that substantially cut their budget.
I just didn't see that part.
Did it fall in line with the allocation?
It falls in lines with the allocations, but I think, Christine, did you have some concerns about how it was cut? That be some more questions.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I constantly talk about, and I thought we had resolved this with Maple Broadband, was the issue of make ready and poll studies. The idea is, my understanding is that would be defined as part of the detailed design. But what, GMP already has poll data. So we're getting these requests for make ready. How can you know what your make ready is going to be if you haven't done the detailed design? Met with a company called Vantage Point Solutions. Happy to be your design folks to have that same discussion. But it really is the chicken before the egg, right? Or the egg before the chicken, whatever. But it really is this cycle thing where I don't know how you can come in with a make ready request without having your design, having the design work done. And it seems to me make ready should be part of construction requests.
We would probably agree with you.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is you're not going to know make ready until you make your license applications, right? And you can get estimates of that ahead of time from the utility, which are going to be formulaic, but they are going to be subject to quite a bit of change on the ground when the actual surveys are done and the binding estimate is developed. So I'd rather see it part of construction, even though if you wanted to have a placeholder for it that is formulaic in pre-construction, that's fine, but that's just a placeholder for what you're going to get more detail on once you make your actual poll applications.
Are you talking right now about the poll inventory work?
No,
that we're doing?
no. We're talking about with the make ready work to get the poll ready.
So I
understand.
but it came from a conversation about the money. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to that. So what is the total grant requests for the pre-construction grant? Total dollars.
1.61 million or something.
No, 2.8 approximately.
2.8046667. It originally was 4454. Zero.
That's
So does
inclusive.
the revise, what was the first number you said about 2.8?
2.804.
Does that then bring it back in line with what your allocation methodology was for CV fiber?
Almost to the penny.
Exactly.
Now,
To the
but
penny.
in all honesty, that's not how we figured that out. What we did was we cut,
Don't tell us.
we went back, instead of asking for the funds for areas A, B, and C in this ask, we cut back areas B and C and focused everything on area A. So we're phasing with areas A, B, C, and D. Now we're actually further cutting back to fit purely with that phasing. We thought we'd get ahead with areas B and C in this ask, and apparently we're not going to.
So this points to the issue that there's more pre-construction to be done than the funding that's allocated right now. And I would suggest to the board that maybe we need to formally consider of like, well, should Make Ready be in construction, or can it be in both? Or do we need to allocate more money? Because I think this is something we're gonna see when we get applications from other CUDs as well.
Yeah, that's the issue I've raised.
Well, there's gonna be
But-
multiple pre-construction grants to each CUD though too, right?
Well,
Could be.
If we change the allotment, that's the thing.
yeah, the
Yeah,
issue,
more
the
than that.
issue is we budgeted $30 million. If that was an assumption that Make Ready was not gonna be part of the pre-construction grant. If the CUDs come in with Make Ready, we're not gonna have enough money.
So, I mean, I would like us to also consider that maybe there will be additional funding as well.
Yeah, that's right. Well, please, you
Or kicked into construction. Because pre-construction can't go on forever, right?
You can't
Pre-construction
fake-
can't go on forever.
Not phasing, like, no, you can't have
What about the
pre-construction
phasing
phasing over
like they're
years.
doing?
I mean,
I guess-
that's what they're
I guess
talking
you
about.
could, But once we start putting out construction money and we start targeting the total available funds we have towards that, because that's the real activity, to then go back to pre-construction phases and try to make additional money, you're gonna be detracting from construction budgets.
But now I want to make sure I'm clear with you.
Yeah.
So there's not enough money to do everything.
Correct,
So, I mean, it's inevitable that, I mean, like,
right, which is why I think we want as much money as possible to go to construction budgets as we can, because if there's not enough to do everything.
let's get finished what we can get
Yeah,
finished.
Construction's
Okay.
real, pre-construction's planning.
Listen.
They're both very important.
But Make
because
Ready's
one without
real.
Another, but if I need to overweight in one, I want more construction funding, because that's real in the ground, getting people connected.
Not that legislators are necessarily expert construction managers.
There's one in the room.
But Make Ready is put into the authorization in pre-construction, so I can understand why it's asked for there.
Yes, good point. And what you're hearing from Brian and I is that, you really should get your design engineering folks to define.
I hear it. I hear it.
And that it can also be included in construction grant applications, since that's.
Well, and we weren't getting, at least we didn't think we were getting ahead of our skis by asking for the 4.8, because in getting a sense of how much money is out there and a ballpark figure of what construction would be allocated to CV fiber, we have a plan for spending that
Yeah.
in areas.
And let's be clear, thanks for having a plan, like that, all the way out there. So, yeah, we gotta, I mean,
And the grant application did ask for, what's your entire picture for 18
That's right.
months? So
Yeah.
here's the picture. We just need to scale
Yeah.
back. and
No
we asked
penalty
for-
points for being like gun ho. Right. But I do have a question, one more question, Dan. Sorry.
Go ahead, I have a question after.
Is some of this funding, pre-construction funding, being used to complete your operating agreement? You're negotiating, you're gonna need some legal services. Is some of it allocated to operating agreement?
Yes, we have an administration or administrative category where we know we need legal services, we need accounting services, we need audit services, we've accounted for
And
that.
so you're going to welcome our request in the grant agreement to review that operating agreement? Well, it will, when you,
Construction.
In the construction.
Construction.
well, we could do it here in the pre-construction grant. The funds are being used to prepare an operating agreement. Why don't we ask to see it when it comes, when
Well,
it gets
when
done?
it's real.
It's done,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Seems
It'll
like
be a-
Thank you.
Yeah,
That will be a public document. so.
I expected that to happen, so, okay.
Dan,
Your expectations will be met.
So, I had a quick question about how much delay do you see built in when you reduced it from 4.4 down to 2.8? You're only doing the pre-construction on sections A. And to Brian's point, there's no point in getting too deep on the D build outs because that's not getting fiber in the air, customers hooked up. So I'm just trying to figure out, as you phase that and you go from A to D, do you see a substantial delay in the deployment of services to houses, or does it become inconsequential once the flywheel starts turning? I hope that makes sense the way I
It
phrased it.
depends on how quickly we can come back and ask for the rest of the money, and how quickly we respond.
Well, and if we are able to potentially secure the money that's still available from VITA, which we are also considering as a way of filling in those gaps too. So I mean, the answer is it could delay things, but we haven't quite figured that out yet.
Okay, and so you can't comment on how substantial that is, do you suppose? I mean,
Well,
delay
I mean,
a week, a delay of 2 weeks, while this board processes and approves is one thing. Are we talking about a season?
You very well could be talking about losing a season. Sure. I think we had to shift I don't have the two schedules in front of me to be able to say how much we shifted our schedule to the right, but we definitely shifted the schedule to the right. There's no question about that.
Okay.
Did this conversation start with a motion?
No.
It didn't.
See if there are any questions.
I guess I have a question. You made me nervous with that last statement. So let me make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying because you cut this back to a phase, to the amount of money needed for phase one, but that introduces a risk, the risk of delay. So for us, for all of us, the question is either we mitigate that risk or we provide the full funds. Because the last thing we want to do is have a construction delay, right?
So I was under the impression that the pre-construction funding pool was fixed and that we'd gone through an allocation methodology that generally portioned it out on an equitable basis to each of the CUDs based on the assumption that each would be coming in just like CV is today, making a high quality application that we would judge and fund largely to the full amount. And that would exhaust the pre-construction funding pool. So 4.4 is above what their overall pre-construction funding is, right?
Correct.
2.8 is basically what it is.
Correct.
So phase one is based on whatever we decide here is going to get them their full pre-construction funding based on the current process. So Christine, you're either proposing to move some of that 30 million away from somebody else who hasn't applied yet and hand it to CV potentially, or expand that 30 million?
No, I'm trying to say we really need to mitigate that risk.
No, I'm trying to get to how.
To how to mitigate.
Your answer was to fund it.
Well,
at
that's what
4.4.
it's.
So that blows up. That blows up.
Blows up the budget. And,
Right, okay.
But the other part I would argue is what if you take the make ready out? Again, I argue the make ready should be in construction. But how much of that 4.4 was make ready?
Here's an hour.
1.6, 1.7.
And that gets you down to the 2.8. Yeah, so that's why I'm confused, right?
Just remind me, what did Maple? Maple did not have make ready in their budget, right? In a pre-construction budget.
I don't have it offhand.
No,
I have to dig it up.
I think we need to be consistent, CUD to CUD to CUD, whether we're including it or not including it, because that would mess with the equitable allocation system we've tried to develop here.
Yeah, that's like this.
Well, Maple also didn't ask for their full amount now.
Oh, that's true.
So,
That's right.
So
They're
there is
doing it
potential
based
for it to
that
still be
way.
included.
But I think
included
that's what we really need to resolve here is because if we include make ready, we're going to blow our budget. If we don't, we'll be.
So sorry, David, do you guys see a problem because we do hope that pre-construction and construction funding happens, right on the backs of each other pretty quickly, right? We don't want to hold this stuff. So do you see a problem with moving make ready to the construction budget?
If the construction process takes 4 months, it would. In other
You
words,
mean the approval
the
process?
approval process,
Okay.
right? And then getting the
yeah.
paperwork out. In other words, this is pretty clean. Even if we don't spend the make ready in the next 2 months, and we have the cash to do it.
Yeah.
So that's the flip in the
Yep.
the two
Okay.
sides of the coin. So.
I was just gonna say, like, as long as it's, again, originally, the original proposal had more make-ready work for not just A, but VCBB.
B, yeah, no, it's all B.
Right, the
Yeah.
stuff that's way further along, I think should wait. So I think the approach that you took with
Well, just
reducing
put
it
it
is
in
great, but I,
context. Our goal for next year was 300 miles of universal service. That's area A and B.
Yeah.
So that's what we're up against from the way this is proposed to bifurcate it. So, you know, to the extent that we have some assurances that the rest of that money is going to come in a timely fashion. Because we know the make ready, we're talking a huge burden on the utilities. I mean, no matter what, it's a lot.
We're not gonna make any friends
No,
to this.
and WEC is, I mean, that's a lot of poles. It's about one pole per mile has to be replaced. That's $5,000. So we're talking about a lot of money right there.
The good news is WEC is gonna have a shiny system when we're done.
That's true.
We all will.
Yeah, we all will.
May I interject a statement? I gotta make a statement. It's been bugging me off. Really is maybe directed at WEC and the PSB and everybody else. If there's value in the smart grid, you just made a great point. You get a new system, I'm being a little extreme here, maybe it's not new, but you get an improved system. That's part of the equation. The equation can't just be, oh, it's going to cost you this much and it's all the burden. It's 100% on the communication network. There's benefits to the utilities, and you ought to be able to monetize those benefits.
But that's a lot to figure out in the course of this grant
No.
application.
This
5 minutes.
Yeah, that's not a-
That has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, that was a.
That's the PUC's.
I got the
excellent
answer that
question.
I needed is that it's
Right.
2.804667. That was good.
Say that again?
We have a grant application pending before us for 2.804667. I think we have a lot of information on that. I did read your, what is it called? Your financial policy. There was 2 documents submitted. One was audit and finance. It comes under your administration, and it talks about how developed you are, and you use the RPC, the Regional Planning Commission, to do some of that. You have a check writing policy that is scary, and you should look at it with an audit person. Too many people are signing checks. That's a friendly footnote from me. That's all.
We'll check it out.
Okay.
So, I understand the seasonal delay. It doesn't seem to be a big deal. At least I'm not seeing anybody nervous or anxious about that, as long as this flywheel starts turning. So you're going to get Section A done, and then the others have to flow quickly so you can begin your make ready. It doesn't seem to be a showstopper, even though we're not giving the 4.5 million up front to start all the make ready. Just one more time, does that concern any of you? I'm not seeing a response, so I think.
No, I mean,
concern you.
we're going to build to everybody eventually by hook or by crook. So could the timing change? Of course. Are we going to, have to consider alternative funding if we want to go after, the large bite size that we were hoping for? Then yeah, probably. But that's on us.
Yep. Okay. So for the rest of the board, are there any other questions?
Yeah, the only thing I would like, this has nothing to do with CV, going forward, we need to be really clear about whether make ready's in the pre-construction or not. In this situation, I think we're recommending that you guys not have it in there so that your budget costs can come down to better match the available allocable funds. Does that make sense? Great, thank you.
You mean the additional make ready for BC and D, or all make ready? I just want to be
They
sure I
don't get any
understand what
make
we're
ready,
approving.
even though that's in their application?
I think make ready, I agree with Christine. I think make ready, they should be budgeted in construction.
But these guys
You're
are,
gonna do that, can we move the design money up?
well, the number doesn't change. You're still approving 2.8 million because of 1.6 million for make ready, right? So, but the point
No,
is,
it was 4.4 minus make ready is
Yeah.
2.8.
Well,
The
make
make
was
is taken out.
No, make ready was 1.6.
1.7.
4.4 minus the 1.6 make ready leaves you 2.8,
Which is what they're asking.
which is what they're allocated.
Yeah, but let's talk about the reality. That's nice on the numbers that they add up, but let's talk about the reality of the application.
Right, because we're looking to execute the make ready with our design, focusing on area A, so that we can come to you for construction funds for area A in a timely manner. So this is the we have a process here of 1 foot before the other that includes getting the make ready done before we have it's not the same crew, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we don't ask the same crew to do the construction and the make ready. It's two separable elements.
So regardless of the funding, what's the soonest you would want to start make ready work? Which to me, starting is you're going to put in license applications to the utilities that own the poles.
Well, we have a test application into WEC as we speak.
If it's not based on your design, right?
No,
You're just-
no,
No, I want
it's a
an
test
application that's based on a design. I don't care about a test
Right.
application.
Well, in the case of WEC, every pole is going to be part of their system, so.
So let me restate my question. What is the soonest you could conceive of putting in a pole application based on your detailed design to WEC as a pole owner or any of the other utilities that are a pole owner in your areas? What's the soonest you could put that first application in? Based on your current timeline and work you have ahead?
For actual make ready, it would be in the early part of the next calendar year.
Perfect. So, okay, that's really helpful. So if you can get your construction grant application in time to make that early 2022 make ready application, those funds could be available to you to do that. Right?
I don't know, will the funds be available at that time? I don't know that.
If you submit a kick-ass construction grant application for your phase A, I think I don't see any reason why that's unreasonable.
Well, I think the question is
What
where's
is the
the
current
construction?
timeframe for your poll applications and for doing that make ready? Like if it wasn't approved today, would that push back your construction schedule for section A, for phase A? Because I believe your ultimate timeline is to start building hopefully when the snow goes away.
Right, which means you want to get poll applications in by January, February at the latest, so that once the ground thaws, they can start doing the make ready work.
Correct.
Or the make ready work's done, I should say, and you guys can go.
Consider our uncertainty. Here's an opportunity to get funds. We're asking for the funds that we think we need to move forward. So we don't know that you're planning on having construction funds ready in time for our we don't know this when we put together our grant application. We see make ready as a part of the pre-construction. We need that.
It's in the
fund.
legislation.
We're figuring this out with you in real time, so we're all in this together.
So here's my question for you then, Brian.
Yeah.
They've submitted an application. It's for 2.8 million and it includes make ready. What are you going to suggest that they fund instead of make ready if you're going to change their application?
So they've just told me the 2.8 million that they're now requesting
Includes make ready.
So what did you take out of the 4.4? Oh, you just went to area A. Got it.
Right.
They just shrunk the project.
Only area A.
Including
Yeah,
details.
so I guess my recommendation would be go back, take the 1.6 out as make ready. The remaining is all of the pre-construction activities, not including make ready for A and B or AB and a portion of C or whatever, however it flows, and make that your budget request. And then we've got a shared goal that you will come back quickly with an area A construction budget that includes make ready.
And our purpose in doing this is to stay within the 30 million. That's the problem we're trying to solve right here.
That for me, and so if I'm trying to solve for a problem that's not real or we don't really have, then somebody slap me and tell me we don't need to do that. But I'm trying to stick to the allocated 30 million.
Got it.
Dan's trying to talk to you.
Sorry, the delay. It was my understanding that the 2.8 stayed within the 30 million allocation for this territory.
Yes, but it includes make ready.
It includes make
For
ready
phase one.
for area A.
But you can, you know what I said, you can shift that, right? You could take make ready out, put it there, and then extend A, B, and portion of C and still hit the 2.8.
And your point is that if you start letting people put make ready in pre-construction grants, the 30 million won't be enough.
Yeah, we're already
You're
seeing.
creating a policy, you're suggesting, well, we're suggesting, and
I'm trying
that's
to
not
keep
a
the 30
bad
million
thing.
whole, so we don't have to revisit that.
Yeah.
That's what we've agreed to.
Yeah, you could solve that problem one of two ways. You could, and, you know, one is to make ready part of construction, which I think personally is financially more sound because your design should be driving the make ready. Or you can increase the amount of the pre-construction funds. But what makes me nervous is kind of just snowballing what that make ready is when it's actually can be defined as part of the design.
So here's my question. My question is, how, do you have any sense of like what additional pre-construction costs you need for the rest of your phases
We needed
without
800,000
make ready?
We needed 800,000 for design services,
Without make ready?
without make, if we took out, we just flipped the
Yeah.
800,000, we'd be happy, because then we would like to do our detailed design for the 300 miles instead of 150 miles.
We like that too.
We would like that as well,
And,
yeah.
and so
It's in our
800 was the
revised
make
app.
ready? 800 was, that's the same amount as the make
Pretty
ready?
close.
So that belongs in the motion.
I don't even understand this yet. You're going with motion. So where are we?
I'm just trying to get off the dime.
That-
No,
what
no,
that
but
motion
if
would sound like?
2.8 including make ready, they're gonna come back.
No,
for
no,
a
they're
different
really,
review.
no, they heard you.
Okay.
And they said, gosh, lo and behold, our 2.804667 includes 800,000 of make ready,
Mhm.
and we'd like to convert that into 800,000 of design services.
To do their whole.
Isn't that awesome?
Right.
That's right. But the
applicant.
we need to put it in the record because the application says make ready.
I just want to note that Krista, the director of NEK Broadband, has her hands up. I don't know if it's something that would be helpful for the board. Board wants to.
Thanks, Rob. Krista?
Hi, thank you very much. I just wanted to comment because I think that there's a risk in going down this path in terms of the timing and our ability to construct at the beginning of the season. At least for the application fees, we've been in conversations with several utilities about the importance of the timing that we're putting them in and creating as much visibility as possible, but also recognizing the other work that's being done in the state and the not necessarily, not by CUDs necessarily. And so that creates a timing issue on a sort of first come, first served basis. There's a degree to which we fully intended to put in whole application, which would be make ready costs, into our pre-construction. And the concern is that we don't know yet what your requirements for the construction budget are going to be. I mean, you've indicated in previous meetings that the design might have to be complete, or this will have to be, there's a number of things that have come up that you've put as, well, we'll just put that as a requirement for the construction budget. So I am very concerned to hear the trajectory of the conversation because of that piece. We really need to get, and it may be that it's limited, to some portion or something like that, but we really do need to get our make ready applications in, and we do not need you know, the absolute full detailed design to do that, right? If you know that you're going to go through a certain area that's going to create your backbone, then you know what your fiber count's going to be, and you know where your poles are, and you can go in and identify your pole numbers and put in your pole applications and be ready for that. So I'm just concerned that we run the risk of not being able to meet whatever requirements you have in the timing that we need to get to spring. Unless.
But your
consider
basic
doing-
comment, Krista, I just want to make sure I'm understanding you. Your basic comment is putting make ready, especially the component pole applications in, and the construction phase is going to put you behind in the lineup to get utility work done.
Yeah, and I was gonna add,
Is that correct?
yeah, now let me just say, the pole applications, that I agree. You know, once you get your high level design, you should be able to put you're gonna have a rough idea what your pole application. Pole applications are $9 a pole, 27 poles a mile, maybe, I don't know what 9 times 27 is, but anyway. But make ready is $8,000 a mile. So I think we should support the pole application costs,
But not the make-ready construction.
not the make ready construction, right?
What
I could go with that.
What about the possibility of providing for construction grants that were make-ready based that might have different levels of requirement or different structure than the remainder of your construction grants, if you're looking to solve that problem?
You're saying like make ready a phase of construction, like an early phase of construction, and just fund those costs?
Right, correct. Sorry, I realized that you're looking at me and I think you're looking away from me. Sorry.
Looking right at you.
So,
Yeah,
yes,
but here's the camera, so.
right, yeah.
so-
So,
Yeah, that's an interesting way to carve it.
yeah,
I mean,
because
I'd
if
be
we
interested
did that, then and we could get make-ready numbers through the construction grant, but we didn't necessarily have to have like our full design done or whatever other requirements you come up with. That may also enable you to get an initial construction phase done earlier because you know, it's going to take more time to maybe figure out some of the other requirement items that you've been talking about in the past. So that would address the issue as well, especially if we could at least have applications inside of the pre-construction, or at least the flexibility to use the funds while we got from point A to point B. Thank you very much for taking my comment.
That was addressed in the Maple grant document as we drafted it, by the way.
Okay. My only concern with that is, if I remember right in the legislation, it was very specific as to the requirements to the construction grant program. That doesn't mean we don't have the ability to create a different grant program with these funds potentially. We know we do have some power to do some discretionary grants, but it's just opening up an entirely different conversation. That's my concern. As much as I love the idea in theory.
You could create a pre-construction grant program that was funded for make ready instead of, in other words, you're concerned about allocating pre-construction funds towards make ready and expanding the pre-construction bucket. So what if you took the, but you're not restricted on how much you allocate to which buckets, correct? So you could still call it pre-construction funds because the legislation allows make ready to be part of pre-construction, and you could make the pre-construction, you could make the make ready grant program through the pre-construction as a separate RFP in order to preserve this 30 million in this RFP.
If we're adding more anyway, we could also just increase the allotment to the pre-construction program.
Well, I think we will.
Like that might be more
Here we are
direct.
working so hard to solve this problem that I think you have the power to fix, right?
Yeah. But my point, Rob, the point is that Brian, we want make ready to be driven by design.
So
So
then we can
But-
say
But it
that, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean,
No, I agree. I agree it can be part of pre-construction. I'm just kind of rather, yeah, one easy way is just to say, increase pre-construction and then accept all the make-ready. But I'm saying, look, we want to, what's being proposed here is pretty clean because it's almost like a guaranteed approval because if you got a design that recommends these poles that need make-ready, you're going to approve it, right? I mean, who are we to second guess the design engineer?
So I don't, if we don't have to solve for the 30 million, we have a lot more options.
Right.
I was under the impression we don't want to revisit that. If my impression is wrong, somebody tell me and I'll get off of that. But I'm trying to preserve it so we don't have to go backwards.
You can just change a number in a spreadsheet and it'll spit out new allotments.
Well, we don't have to go to the finance, you don't have to go to finance and get approval.
I think we would have to go to finance, but
Yeah.
it's something, they approved the program, so.
So, well, and how long does it take?
It's quick when we let them know it's a priority.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we
also issued our first grant to Maple under the prior,
But we gave them what they asked for.
but they only asked for what they thought they were allocated.
Well, they didn't even ask for what they were allocated. That was the thing. They saw themselves as coming back with a second grant.
Well, they had a plan.
I believe that we should increase the 30 million so that it's not a barrier to good project design and execution. I believe that CB Fiber should be asking for 3.6 million because they should have the 800,000 for their design and they should be able to get at least their pole applications in. And the construction grant, as designed by legislation, asks for giving priority to projects that are, I've lost the words here, but ready to go is basically it. So having those pole applications in and having the design done sounds like common.
So 300 miles of pole applications at 21, 22 poles per mile is about 60 grand. Like the applications, to Christine's point, the applications are not the cost. It's
Okay.
The make-ready work.
so like, yeah.
I'm fine with not having it be 800,000 more. Please make a common
So
sense.
I would like to
suggestion.
suggest that we fund the 2.8 in the interest of moving forward, that we fund the 2.8 with the make ready out, the complete engineering, that we have the staff come back with a revised budget that includes make ready and allow these guys to come back in with a second application for make ready.
And regardless, it really doesn't matter if it's considered like part of the pre-construction or construction. It's just the make ready ask, right?
Don't start doing that because you're just outside the legislation.
So here's the problem I'm trying to solve. So the problem I'm trying to solve is, it sounds like there's some consensus around increasing the 30 million.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that sitting here.
Right.
So we need to find a way to move these guys forward. So let's move them forward with what we know. And I agree, like, let's, the make ready seems like a place to, okay, well, let's put that here while we're going to increase the amount, and then we'll come back and revisit this with them once we increase the amount and increase the allocations
But what Brian offered,
for pre-construction.
but what Brian offered,
Yeah,
which seems sensical to me,
sensical. Okay.
I know you love that.
It's not sensible, but it's sensible.
So is that for, $100,000 or less, we could be doing pole applications based on that design in the pre-construction phase.
And I think that's a good thing to do.
But what
Yeah,
happens
so what we're
when
saying, make ready applications will be allowed as part of,
That's part of pre-construction.
but, oh gosh, we're all balled up here.
So
But see, because then what we're really doing is creating a reasonable, sensible point of demarcation for what is pre-construction.
And so what is that point?
That
Pole
point is
application-
design
pole license
plus
applications?
pole license applications.
How does that feel? Are you guys following any of this madness?
Yeah.
What do you think we just said?
We are totally with you. For me, my thing is timing of when we can get the funds to do the actual physical make ready work, start moving things on the poles. And
But if
so we need to
you,
be able, you need to be able to come back in a timely manner and ask for that money.
Yep.
so what I'm trying to say to you though, is you might not, you could be waiting for us for that construction grant. But if you're not in line at the utilities with the pole application, it doesn't matter how fast we are.
So what you're proposing is this work that Jerry's talking about blocks on the application process, which can take a while. So let's get that off of the construction docket into the pre-construction docket and front load that as much as possible. Yes. The sooner that can get done, the sooner that can get funded. Yeah.
And so
Let's go.
what I'm saying is, let us not like shift gears right here on the fly. Like, let's go with known, which is 30 million, known allocation. We're saying no make ready. There's some consensus around, let's increase the 30 million. So let's have staff go back, do that, come back in the next meeting. I mean, and I'm fine with these guys coming back with like or we figure out how
Addendum to their pre-construction
yes,
application.
yeah. I mean, let's fund what we can fund today with what's known, and let's
So
try
we're
and,
not making it up.
well, let's try. I mean, we're all going so fast, but let's try and have something that is not a complete free for all.
I can say that
Noble goal.
Rob is nodding.
Uh,
Rob is nodding. We support staff of police. That's a good thing.
What did you do to get?
Laura, in that sounded like a motion, but that
Well, but
Also-
Krista does look like somebody shot her puppy, Brian said, so. We should-
We also have another hand, but it might be Deerfield Valley saying, "Are you ready for us?"
I think it's David Jones, but I just wanted to ask about, in that which you just described, are we, and I'm a proponent of this, are we going to give them the pole attachment fees? Are we going to encourage them to make those pole attachments, yet the make ready exists down the road? That
So
way they can
here's-
move ahead with their pole
Yeah.
attachments.
I would like to make a motion that includes the full cost of their design and their pole attachments and none of their make ready for today.
Pole attachment applications.
Pole
That's
attachment
right. That's exactly what I
application.
meant, Brian.
The technical term is pole
Okay.
license application.
That's right. And so I need somebody to tell me what that amount is.
Application.
300 miles is gonna cost you about 60 grand.
No,
No more numbers, please. Leave it to that.
Plus design. And are you, CV, able to fill in the blank, or do you want to come back with an addendum to your application?
Well, I mean, it's 800,000 additional in the design for area B, and 60,000 for pole applications is a separate line, and it comes out almost exactly to 2.804. I mean, you can make up the difference in the pole application.
Yeah, I think we're close enough.
So it's still the same amount.
Correct,
So the number remains the same?
yes.
That
Beautiful
makes
world.
sense.
This is weird, but.
Dan,
It's
Krista has been asking, has her hand raised.
And David
Yeah,
has, David
well, I
has
wanted to
to.
make sure we got that clarification on what that number
Yeah,
was.
so there's a motion on the floor. Is that your motion that you are proposing that to approve a grant for $2,804,667? That includes $800,000 of design services for area B, plus pole license applications for the subject areas A and B.
I second that motion.
Awesome.
Okay,
Discussion.
motion on the table. Now discussion, and Krista has had her hand up, and I believe there's one other.
The only item I wanted to say was what do we do when the poll application goes through and the utility wants us to pay for the make ready?
So Krista,
If we-
here's what I'm hoping is gonna happen. I'm hoping the next meeting, staff is coming back with an increased allocation for pre-construction, and we are approving additional funds to CV for their make ready.
Okay, got it.
That's what I'm hoping is happening. I'm just trying to avoid us
Okay.
like, oh yeah, we're
Nope,
gonna
that's
raise
great.
the
Yeah,
amount here and blah, 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 right?
Okay, all right, understood. Thank you.
It's part of construction grants.
No, pre-construction.
Okay, David Jones.
We don't have construction
Yes.
criteria.
I think we have some talking to do.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm concerned that that the board may be setting a precedent that pre-construction funds do not include make-ready. What Krista said was exactly correct, that what if we submit the application fee, we do the write-out, and then it is time for us to actually make the payment. We need the funds to make the payment.
No, you should not make the payment at that point. You should not make the payment at that point. You should not make the payment because you did that based on a high-level design. You really need to have the detailed design to know specifically. Your detailed design can change from the high-level design. That's when you're getting down to detailed design. That's when you're going to ground truthing. That's when you're looking at the poles. That's when you're saying, look, we're not going to go this section because it's in a swamp.
Okay, excuse me. I was not done.
I'm not to say, yeah.
We are going to rely on our engineers to do our engineering, and we are not going to rely on the board staff to do our engineering. Now, our engineers believe that we are going to be able to submit poll applications as soon as the end of this month. And when those poll applications, when we've done the write-outs, we need to be prepared to make our payments. It is for us to delay making the payments means that we have delayed our position in the queue. It's very important. And so my only point here is that I hope the board does not accept this opinion as the basis for a precedent. Thank you.
So,
Thank you, David.
Dan, may I?
Yes.
So the problem that I am trying to solve is actually so CV needs a more allocation than exists for their pre-construction work, which includes make-ready that is driven by design, that should not be paid for until the design is done, I'm hearing folks say. So the problem we're trying to solve is how do we make sure, so it sounds like we have not allocated enough money for pre-construction. So CV has come in with, so we need to increase that. I am saying that we should, as part of our pre-construction grant process, include, allow for make-ready. In CV's case, that's going to blow through their allocation. So we're asking staff, we haven't decided, this is my proposal, asking staff to go back, raise the allocation amount, or raise the total amount, which will change the allocation amounts and which will allow for make-ready as well. That's what I am trying to solve for. And so if we have applications that are coming in that are within their allotment, if that is in fact what we're going to do, that include make-ready, I would say that would be okay.
I don't think we're, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we're trying to make a blanket policy that make-ready can't be included in applications
Well,
this round.
there's been discussion about that. So
It's
I'm
just
trying
that
to
if
say
you're-
no. Yeah.
If you're over your limit, that shouldn't be the priority because we're going to look into how to increase that to be able to do make-ready.
I think fundamentally we're talking about a timing challenge. Now we're just talking about a
But
timing
I
challenge,
also
right?
think
And
we're
so,
talking about good design practice.
well, but we don't. So yes, we are. And we're funding the designs. And so are we going to approve the designs before this goes out to, I mean, like what's, I don't.
Conceptually, it just seems odd.
We're just paying for this, we're paying for design now. And if in pre-construction grant applications, we're funding both design and make-ready, the assumption is not that you would do the make-ready and then do the design. And if we need to state it, need to state it in the grant itself, so be
We'll
it.
state that. The point is you shouldn't be cutting checks for make-ready until your design is complete.
It gets established in the timeline that they present to the order they're going to do
Utility
things.
only goes off of when they get the application and when they do buy out. They don't care about your design.
Yeah, but what if the design changes the pole route?
Yeah, that's on the applicant. The utility gets the application and they process it. They have 90 days to do the survey and to get, they don't care.
Okay.
Unless the VCBB is going to go corral them and say, hey, we're gonna kind of ask for that, which is never gonna happen. Like, you're on the clock with the utility, right? And they don't care.
Yeah, and the reason that I'm advocating for these costs to be included in pre-construction is because that is a known application. We've established the criteria, we're in that process. I think it's fair for the CUDs to say, you don't have the construction application out there yet, so we're a little nervous that you may not get it to us in time to make sure that we can get that make-ready done, which is, I think, the angst that I'm hearing, maybe not. So that's why I'm saying I think we should make sure that it's included, but it sounds like we don't have enough money, so let's
Let's be clear, like, if we're gonna raise the 30 to 35 or 40 to
whatever.
do that, it's not like we got an extra 5 or 10, we're pulling that from construction, right?
I mean, right.
Right, it's
solving a timing problem.
Yeah.
It's solving a timing
Okay.
problem.
But again, I think we should go back and just look at, did we disadvantage Maple from going first? Or are they cool with this?
Yeah.
And if CD
Agreed.
has taught us something
We
through
can
their
ask them.
process, yeah, I think we should just give them a chance to respond.
Yeah, it's rolling applications. There's nothing stopping groups from coming back for more applications.
Okay.
Dan, you have a hand up.
Yeah, there's 2 hands up. We haven't heard from Ann Manwaring yet.
Hi, does that mean I'm being called on? I
You
appreciate it.
Keep it for this, though.
What's concerning me about this conversation, and I realize that all of us are going through this the first time, but the criteria that the board set out for filing pre-construction applications included money for make ready. And now we're having a conversation that feels an awful lot like changing horses midstream to me. Well, and I recognize you may have a problem that you have to solve in terms of whether the 30 million that was, quote, allocated for pre-construction is a hard and fast rule, whether or not the 30 million is paid for out of a grant called pre-construction, or whether the activity called Make Ready is handled in a construction grant and a pre-construction grant. That's an issue that you will have to solve holistically, and that is the total amount of money that will end up in both categories of grants, whether that's 30 million or whether it turns out to be 50 million. I understand that you, the board, will have to solve that. But we as CUDs proceeded down a path according to your instructions. And this feels an awful lot like a conversation, and I realize where it comes from. It feels an awful lot like a conversation that's changing horses midstream here. That's going to force work back on us that doesn't seem to be necessarily productive from my point of view.
I think we might be mixing things up a little bit. We were talking about one specific application, not necessarily a policy for all applications. It was one application that was over the current allotment. So it was more about prioritizing, I think.
And there was some
Yeah.
conversation about
Yeah.
possibly
Yeah, there
changing
was.
prior.
And I retract.
But that's
I
not.
re-
where
I
we're at.
retract that.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Ann. Krista, you still have your hand up. Did you have more to say?
Are you still on CD?
No, I just forgot to pull it down, sorry.
Believe it or not. Sorry.
I wanted to make sure it was all okay.
Nice to see you, Patty. See you in 2 weeks. So I'm going to try and repeat what I heard as a motion, which was to approve the 2.8046667, which was for the pole, which would include the pole attachments, and that we would, the make ready would not be there, but yet would be looked for in an adjustment later so that we could keep this ball moving forward. Laura, did I repeat that?
And 800,000 for design for area B.
Thank you.
2 point, yeah, and the 2.8. Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
So do we have any more discussion with the board?
So I just want to make sure, I'm sorry, I know this horse is dead so many times over, that we are, I mean, I'm hoping that we're going to move expeditiously and coming back at the next meeting with an increase, and we're dealing with CV fiber and their make-ready issue at the next meeting.
We can't commit to increasing that 30 million by the next meeting because of the process that we have to go through.
Okay,
But
but we're going to,
But you can ask by the.
we're
going to do it as
we will do it as
quickly
quickly as possible.
and come back.
And
Okay,
Right. And they won't have their design done in 2 weeks anyhow.
okay. Anybody have it? Everybody is still alive and with us. No one has perished. Okay.
I second Dan's motion.
Dan, that was my motion.
You just did it.
And Laura seconded it already.
No, I was trying to repeat to make sure that it was too clear and it was on the table.
We need to get through this and get Patty back
Yeah.
in here
Yeah.
quick.
So what do we do?
So,
We're voting now.
so, we got the motion. Everyone in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed or abstained? I think that was unanimous. Thank you.
I'm gonna go get Patty.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your endurance.
Thank you for your work. Thank you for everything that you all are doing for these communities. And you guys have been at this a long time, longer than, you guys were like were you the second CUD? Yeah. Good job. Keep going. Thank you.
Very complete too. That was nice. Anne, your hand is still up.
Yes, yes. Yay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I just was like, I just want to make sure they have moved on.
Yeah, we're done.
So Patty, that was a piece of cake.
Yeah.
That was a piece of cake?
We're ahead of schedule, right?
Wow.
2:30.
So,
I didn't
It's called
anticipate.
vice chair hell right there.
yeah.
Close your eyes.
So we
now run the meeting.
decided that we need to look at increasing the allocation for pre-construction. So staff is going to go back to finance, the administration, to talk about that, and then have CV fiber, make sure that we have enough for make ready as part of pre-construction for CUDs that are coming in.
Not really following, but
Yeah.
Let's pick it up after.
Yes.
Wait,
There's
after.
there's a decision that we made here about,
Coming
Coming back.
I'll be glad to.
we don't need to
It's not
spend
too
2 hours.
Talking about the 2 hours.
well, no, but hopefully it doesn't come up again. I don't know.
Well, I think you've got a
Carol
clear
Monroe
position.
has her hand up. I think we'd probably be wise to hear whatever she has to say.
Can I, before we go to Carol, can I ask, did the numbers that Rob calculated in his file get changed? Or no, am I just totally missing?
Well,
We're
the
saying
number,
that
the
they're
number we
inadequate.
approved was less than the original request. The original request was at 4 million and we approved 2,804,667 dollars, which was the revised ask. But it did get allocated to,
Hold on, give me those numbers again. So CV fiber asked for, is that what you're saying?
yes?
What did they ask for?
They asked for 4.4, we approved 2.8. 2.8 was what they were allocated according to the formula. We're gonna revisit the total allotment to address make-ready issues.
So you have an Excel sheet with a formulaic
Yes.
disbursement to all CUDs.
Yes.
Is that the table that needs to be changed?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And the total amount,
And the total
Right.
amount will
Okay.
go,
Okay,
to make sure for timing purposes that the CUDs know that
And
they
it's
have to
been
make
requested
ready
of
money.
staff to do this as quickly as possible. We will.
we have had a robust discussion
I am
Of
sure it's been a couple hours.
of the components of Make Ready and where they belong in the process.
When did I miss that?
Did you say I'm glad I missed
No,
that?
I'm bummed. I'm bummed, for real.
So
Yeah.
This is just hard stuff.
Yeah, I my
There's
apologies.
Carol Monroe asking a question. Can we? Is Dan off duty and you're
Yeah,
on?
so I'll step in, Dan. So Carol,
Yes,
you have a
please.
question? Carol, it's Patty. Do you have a question you want to ask of us? you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Not muted.
Okay.
Okay.
Should probably decide after.
Carol,
Should
Carol,
really be over
did you
now.
leave your,
This is on tape, yes?
Yes.
So I can go and view this.
yes,
That's what I will do,
yeah.
because I'm not part of any of the decision making.
Yeah.
Big blow one, please.
I-
Open first.
I lowered Carol's hand since she wasn't there.
That's good to know. All right,
Deerfield.
okay, so
Next is Deerfield.
Yep.
are we gonna skip Northwest?
Oh, did we have Northwest second? Oh, we had Northwest after Deerfield.
It's on the agenda as Northwest, but I'm happy to take them in either order.
Who do we have here? We have both here. It's whatever the board prefers.
So we take Northwest next?
I think we should follow our agenda.
Okay, let's take
Okay.
Northwest.
So you're still muted, Sean.
So as you saw, staff made a recommendation to approve this. It's, they clearly need the funds in order to get into their high-level design and business planning. But Sean, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
But before you do, Sean, can you summarize staff's recommendation? Yes, I've read it. So they would like to hear what your recommendation is.
Yes, we've read it.
And is this one the one you said didn't meet? Like, expand a little.
Yeah,
bit more.
the Northwest is further behind than the other CUDs, so they're not ready. They're not the same place where they're going into design. But we really want them to catch up as quickly as possible. So this funding, I suspect Northwest will. I guess what I'm going to ask Northwest is you'll be coming in for a second level of pre-construction grant.
Correct.
So,
Okay, so this money does what for you?
Two things. First being capacity, allowing us to hire professional staff, which did not have the ability to do so until today. Today's my first day, so right into the fire.
Yay!
Yeah.
Welcome aboard.
For those who aren't aware, I was formerly the chair, and I've resigned from the board in order to take on this role. It was a long process of making sure we did things appropriately, but I went through the whole interview process and everything just like everyone else, and luckily I was selected. Secondly, we are funded and have the funds to complete our business plan, as well as some enhancement dollars as well to improve that plan through USDA. Some additional money. I'm glad we didn't go first. So some additional funds in there indicate cost for pole surveying and potentially make ready. And I know that's a hot topic this morning. So we got the same, much like NEK, we had discussions with Green Mountain and VEC as well. And they gave us kind of the same guidance as well of getting our poll apps in as soon as possible. Obviously, we're a little bit further behind. We're seeking to kind of accelerate our progress pretty quickly, or as quickly as we can. Here, likely in the next 2 to 3 days, we'll get our RFQ sent out to the 4 consultant entities for our business plan, with the plan to have a quick turnaround of 6 to 8 weeks, so we can get caught back up. We are we are a little behind, as Christine said, where some of the others are. We are the newest. So you went from one of the oldest to the newest of all the CUDs. So we're seeking to get those items in place so we can spin this around and hopefully get to our design and make ready work come Q1 of next year, possibly. If all things kind of fall in line for us.
So the 675,000 request is not, I think it's 675.
604.
604.
604.
It's not really, it's not near their allocation, but it's, so again, I expect them to come in for a second request when they get closer.
Correct. That's our intent to do so.
So Sean, I think I heard you say you're going to use this money to do a poll survey and to do a business plan?
Not the business plan. The business plan we're already funded for through the Broadband Innovation Grant in collaboration with NRPC, our regional planning office. So that's already allocated. We went through feasibility, had our third party review. We opted to go in a different direction than our original consultants that we used for the feasibility. That process will be starting. Our board just last Thursday approved kind of that direction, and we're going to move forward with inviting a number of consultants for the business plan, which we felt aligned nicely with Northwest.
So a poll attachment survey is not a lot of money. What are you going to use the rest on?
Well, we used our understanding is primarily after speaking with the two larger electric utilities that a full poll survey for their service areas is a lot less needed. We also have the two smaller municipal utilities, Swanton Village and Village of Enosburg Falls. Our understanding is those areas may need a little bit more attention. We got the poll survey costs from two different assessments, one from our feasibility and another from some work that partners in Bakuda were able to put together based off of our road mileage and average costs. So without a business plan, some of this, we kind of had to use the best available data to us to make our assumptions on these.
So are you saying the poll attachment survey is 600,000 for?
No, yeah, a portion of this is for staff and capacity and kind of just getting us.
I'm just trying to drill into what the money would be used for.
Absolutely.
Okay. The rest is kind of startup costs and, salaries and technologies and things like that.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. Laura.
Thanks, Sean. Has Northwest received all of the kind of, I know that VCF, there's been a few kind of grants and other things that have come in for capacity building, and have those come in as well?
We've done some, VCF. We did receive, actually just signed the grant agreement a week ago for USDA Rural Business Development. That's in portion of that. That's partially capacity as well as some additional professional support. Yes, in short, we have received some additional funds from other entities.
Okay.
What's the allocation, the total allocation pre-construction for NW?
3.558.
Sorry, Rob.
And okay.
20%.
The difference is the remaining is 2.954.
All right, other questions? Are we prepared to move on this? Any other feedback from staff?
I'm going to make a confession here. I'm not as prepared on this application because it was a smaller amount. I spent so much time looking at the other ones.
Gotcha.
So our common questions at this juncture are, is there a plan to serve, a universal service plan to serve 100%? I don't think they're even ready to answer the question, right?
It's their objective, but
You're right. And so that's fair, Sean, right?
Yeah, because we don't have a business plan. Some of these items are, through the grant application, it was difficult to.
Right. And one of the other questions,
business plan, but certainly we've adopted a policy to seek to achieve universal service. Certainly.
Yeah. And one of the other questions that we ask kind of upfront is whether or not, where you are with other grant monies, and that too is very early in the process for you, in terms of development. So I sort of see this as, since we know they're coming back and we'll have an opportunity to complete that examination in the pre-construction phase. I sort of see this as liftoff for them, and knowing that we'll get some of those other criteria settled next round.
So the only question I have, really it's because this is a big part of this small application actually, is this staffing capacity level in line with what we've seen across the rest of the CUDs?
Yes.
Great, that's the only question I have.
Good question.
Dan or Brian, any questions?
No, okay, yeah.
I'm okay.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion to approve?
So I move that we, oh God, I don't have the amount in front of me.
Here. 604, 376.
And a quarter.
And a quarter.
25 cents.
Thank you for your exactness.
I move.
We should be asking questions.
Wait, I could pony up 75 cents and we can kind of make it a round number.
I move we approve Northwest CUD's pre-construction application in the amount of $604,376.25.
I'll
Dan
second.
second.
Okay,
Dan seconded.
Dan seconded it.
Good.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You have your funding.
Is somebody taking minutes?
I appreciate.
Audrey is taking that.
Audrey is taking minutes. Okay. Thank you, Audrey.
Okay.
Appreciate the board's support, and I look forward to getting another second application in here in the next couple months. Thanks again.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. God, that was easy. What took so long for the first one?
Well, I mean, these guys are just starting CUDs, years old.
Exactly. Okay, next one on our list is Deerfield Valley Fiber pre-construction grant.
So Patty, my husband is on the board, and DV Fiber is negotiating with the RDC that I work at for grant management. None of that will I be supervising or reviewing. I have no financial connection to them, but because I think it's in their best interest, I'm going to recuse myself and leave the room for the discussion for CUD.
You could go out shopping.
I'm going to go grab some more coffee.
I'm like, my phone is running down. I didn't even look in for it. Okay, Christine, will you tee this one up as well? Give a summary of what your findings of the.
Yeah, I had written all this up, but I guess it didn't make it up.
You've got a couple of paragraphs.
Yeah, I mean, the DV fiber application was very thorough. We went through it, and I really had no questions. It was very nice job.
Well, could you, rather than your opinion, could you like walk us through those so we have a record of, we looked at this?
I'll let them walk. Well, why don't you guys, since I wasn't prepared to actually go through that level of detail.
So, I mean, just, as we move forward, for me, that would be helpful, not to do like a 5-hour dissertation, but just a high level, this is your findings, these are some highlights, that would be great.
Yeah, okay.
To lead us through. Okay.
Why don't we have DV Fiber take us through your application, please?
Okay. Hello. It's been quite fascinating listening to our compatriots and the issues they have been presenting to the board. I'm Ann Manwaring. I'm the chair of DV Fiber, and our grant application of $4.1 million within our allocation has basically two parts to it. The first part is what I think the board is calling capacity building, which in essence is actually turning us from an all-volunteer organization to a professionally operated one. And quite a bit of the amount of money that's in that part of our application goes exactly for that. It also will be funding the work of our communications committee, which in essence is beginning our outreach to who will eventually be our customer. through building consumer or customer databases, through website, through social media, through a whole range of things that relate to that. And the second part of our application is actually funding to begin to do the actual pre-construction work. I'll have David Jones, who is also on here, answer and go through that part of the application. But if you have questions on the capacity part of it, I will be glad to do that. David, would you like to just give a kind of a high-level overlook of what we're asking for in the work portion, the pre-construction portion of our application? That would be good.
Okay, thank you, Ann. I assume everyone can hear me. Our pre-construction plan includes everything from the very first step of high-level design for the entire 24-town district to engineering, detail engineering, first for our phase 1 towns, which are the towns with the largest concentrations of unserved and underserved premises. And then second, detailed engineering for our phase 2 towns, which are all other areas of all other towns that are unserved and underserved, both of which efforts are intended to get to the point of universal service. Our goal from the beginning has been to provide service where it is not provided now. And so our detailed engineering will, that is grant funded, will focus on those unserved and underserved areas. We make reference in the application to a potential phase 3 where we expand beyond these areas, but that will not be a grant funded activity. Also included in our in our pre-construction application is make-ready costs. Both the costs of the initial fees, the cost to do write-outs, and the actual application fees, net of what we can conservatively estimate to be the subsidies under the tariff rider, the Green Mountain Power tariff rider agreement. There's a couple of smaller amounts as well, one for a small segment of underground route construction that we've become aware of and which we may need to proceed on before the construction grants are approved. And secondly, the project management services of our vendor partner, GWI. All told, these items sum up to 3.4 million of the 4.1 million total amount.
So David, is your operator partner GWI that you just referred to? That's the operating?
Yes, GWI is our vendor partner. In our application, we describe to some level of detail how we selected GWI.
Thank you.
Are we going to have an executive session component of this grant review?
If there's a need for it, we can. But it would have to be a contractual matter that would put the VCBB at a disadvantage. It would have to be personnel related, something of that nature to move into executive session.
I understand that. I'm just, I'm asking whether anybody has any questions that would constitute proprietary information. I'm hearing that's a no. No.
I don't know.
Not from VCBB. Is anybody on the Deerfield side concerned that they would have any sort of contractual proprietary information?
Or would like to talk about it in executive session?
Yes.
I think the answer depends on the nature of the question. In our grant application, we provided information that we assumed could become public. We also provided some supplemental information which we do not want to become public. If the questions veered into, for example, our process of deciding upon GWI, we might need to go into executive session. Don't know. It'll depend on the question.
I'll do a specific question
So,
on that.
so in just
portion.
reviewing the addendum, the unredacted addendum, I just had, there's some things there that I question, like, why is this redacted? And the only question I have for board members is whether we're setting a precedent with the redactions. And because you've supplied it with us with a whole document, I can't see that there's a real danger, but there are some things about, what the expectation of utility costs, pole attachment costs might be that's redacted. And I'm like, why would that be? But I'm gonna think we're in the no harm, no foul zone here. And so it seems like nobody else is concerned about it, so I'm not going to worry about it right now myself.
I could briefly comment. As a general matter, we are going to keep unit costs and unit volumes. But since we have to itemize the amount of the grant, we are providing publicly the total amounts, and we have provided the details for your information separately.
Thank you. Thank you.
Could I make a comment on Holly's question here? Would that be all right? One of the things that is kind of difficult to understand about CUDs is that even though we are municipalities and we operate in the public arena, unlike other municipalities, we also are subject to the competitive forces of the commercial vendors and in the sense of competing for the same customers. And so there are privacy rules that we are obligated open meeting rules that we are obligated to live by that they are not. And so what we're doing is within those rules of open meeting versus concerns for our ability to be competitive, that is the reason why certain types of data we feel need to be redacted. It goes to the competitiveness that CUDs are involved in. Unlike
well, that would actually be Representative Mainwaring exactly why I was questioning it, is because it's concerning that we not set precedent for over including redacted material because of the publicness of the process. But I'm not going to raise the issue because I don't see that there's a problem for the public in how it's been presented. So, but I appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
And for the record, I just think that we have to be careful about getting overly concerned about the competition. I just don't know that there's a lot of, this is just idle editorializing right now, so I should just stop. But, we're talking about areas that nobody has wanted to serve for a long time. And so I just wonder how much competition there is really. But
the game changer on that one, if I may, is all of this federal money that has arrived in our playground now. So that has changed the reality. I appreciate your point on that, but that has changed the dynamic.
Okay.
Anything else that you would like to share with us before we turn it open to questions?
we're eager to get started.
Yeah. Any questions, any other questions from the VCBB?
I'm just missing the budget where's the budget in the application? I'm blaming myself because I'm sure it's here and I just can't see it.
It is there. They combine several things into one. David or Ann, do you want to quickly walk through the budget? Because you did have two large categories here. Page 5.
Rob, I have a different version than the one that actually, it's just visually different than the one that was actually in the grant.
Okay.
What two large categories are you talking about? The capacity building and the actual pre-construction work? Is that your...
I'm sorry, hold on a second. At least what I just pulled up right now has it 2 categories: administration and engineering and pre-construction.
Okay, the administration is what I was referring to as capacity building. And that's basically 18 months worth of administrative services. And then the construction of 3.73 are all of the actual work regarding pre-construction activities that David described. And we broke it up into the notion that we will begin spending this, we hope, with your approval, 2 months in 2021, 12 months in 2022, and 4 months in 2023. Thus, the numbers are covering 18 months of our operation.
And what's their allocation, Rob?
Their allocation is 4.122703.
And our grant request is 4.112794. Squeaking under the line.
And for the record, the details of the budget are on pages 41 and 42 of the grant application.
I thought I saw it elsewhere, more detail than that.
May I ask a
Yes,
question at the point? We have been setting this practice of I'm referring to page 17 and 18 of the application, where it talks about sources of financing that you've received, $339,000. It's been our practice to ask what remainder is with you, if any. Do you have unspent grant funds or contributions?
Yes, we do. Let me see if I can quickly pull that up for you. We're still spending some money from our H315 grant. We hope that that will be literally all obligated before the end of this year. But because we are looking to start spending this grant in a portion of the current year, there is some overlap that, although we have morphed the common items in the H315 grant with those that we're going to continue in this grant in a way that it should be obvious in our work. The grant that we've received from BCF, we still have money left over in that. And that grant money has been enormously helpful because it is totally unrestricted. And one of the things we've been able to do with that money is get started on some of our work while we were waiting for all of the grant approval processes from the state on our basic state grants. And so that's we still have some of that, and we anticipate that it will have considerable value to us for that same reason going forward. We have a small grant from the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, and I believe all but $300 of that has already been spent. And we'll spend the other $300 before the end of this year. There is a little bit of CARES Act money that has not yet been allocated, but we still have a little bit more time to do that.
I have another question.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going back to GWI. So I'm just sorry to be a little confused. There is an MOU there is a master services agreement, there is a construction services agreement. And I don't think that you've signed them all. I think that the master services agreement is still in the works. And stop me if I'm making you nervous by asking these questions.
Oh.
But
Nope.
I'd like to know exactly where you are and what's done in your collaboration.
Okay, yeah, I can take that one. We are, you're right that when we are done, we are going to have a master services agreement and several statements of work. In preparation for this funding, we focused on the first statement of work, which is engineering and pre-construction. We haven't signed any agreements in advance of this conversation because we can't sign agreements if we don't have any money to pay for them. But we are hoping to be able to sign the engineering and pre-construction grant agreement very shortly. That agreement is intended to be able to stand alone while we complete the negotiation of all of the other components of the total agreement. And our expectation is that you are going to want to see the components of that total agreement before we go to construction.
Yes, thank you. And who's your counsel on this document, which looks pretty complete?
Primer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions of Deerfield Valley?
Just real quick, I was just noticing some things. So it looks like you guys identified 2,148 locations being less than 4.1. Does that sound right?
Sounds about right. That's those are the PSD's current numbers.
Yeah. And then in your, what page am I on? 42, in your budget, you've got GMP's make ready subsidy of about 540 grand for whatever time period this budget represents, which you have, there's a note that it's 50% of maximum possible theoretical amount. So if I do the math on that, that's like 540 locations out of the 2148 that you'll hit within this ask period, because total make ready costs about 1.955, 540 of that at 50% of the maximum would be, the math on that would be like 540 locations. Am I thinking about that the right way?
Okay, one moment. We figured phase one would be 796 eligible locations. We figured phase two would be 1352 for a total of 2148. Does that answer your question?
Yep. So why are you budgeting 50% of that maximum theoretical? Do you think you'll have efficiencies that'll bring the actuals below the $2,000 a location?
We don't believe that we calculated the maximum theoretical amount. We don't believe that our reality will mirror the maximum theoretical amount, and we have to be assured of being able to make adequate payment. So we have included in an estimate that we would get only 50% of that, and we've included a contingency amount that brings that down to 1/3. There are conditions that will cause GMP to make their calculation, and no one of us can say exactly what that number will be. And so we have selected a conservative amount that we truly, it's best estimate.
That's helpful. Thank you, David. I'm good.
Any other questions? Dan, do you have questions?
No, I don't.
I thought this application was extraordinarily well written, so thank you for that.
It's good feedback. Okay, are we prepared to hold a motion and a vote? Do you want to move this?
I move that we fund it as described.
We should say the total amount for the record.
You are such a stickler.
I'm sorry.
Good idea.
So 4 million.
4,111,318 is what I have.
No.
Did I get that
That's
number?
what I showed.
Okay.
David,
Describe.
I will second that.
Yeah, there it is.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Your grant is awarded. Congratulations. Go forth and do great work.
thank you. Thank you so much. We
We
really
greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Then let me check. Are we ready to talk about pre-construction or
What, sorry?
do you want to talk about pre-construction?
What did you say?
Sorry, Jen.
We didn't hear you, Ann.
I said, we will be back for more.
You're a smart
Spend
woman.
wisely, spend wisely.
Before we do go forward, Carol Monroe did send a message. Apparently her microphone is broken, but I think we should put it in the record since she was trying to give it.
Who is this?
Carol Monroe.
Okay.
So I'm just going to read it really quick once after I stop spotlighting everybody here. It's really quick, but I think it is relevant. So this is from Carol Monroe. I wanted to remind the board that there is a limited amount of time between poll applications and utility survey, which sets the make-ready costs and the time the CUD needs to pay for the make-ready according to the administrative rules. If not paid in time, the process could begin again. C1A, this is quoted, a poll-owning utility may withdraw an outstanding estimate of charges to perform make-ready work beginning 14 days after the estimate is presented, unless otherwise agreed by the parties. If the CUD has not agreed and submitted a check within 14 days, the utility poll owner may withdraw the estimate. So
That's important to know.
very important to know.
That's the rule. They can, if parties can agree, and that's why I'm hoping everyone's aware of the context that these applications are coming in and parties can agree, because that 14 days is going to be tight.
Right.
And the utilities don't want to pull that, of course, but they also, utilities are going to, when they get these make-ready applications, it's going to be a real strain.
Yeah, I get, not to, well, I guess I'm going to beat the dead horse. But, the issue, when I'm talking, kind of put you to Brian and Dan, that, and of course, I'm ready to drop it, but it just doesn't make sense that we're going to commit ourselves based on high-level design rather than detailed design.
I mean, as I said, the number of applications coming are going to create significant strain above and beyond strain that's existed in the past few years anyway. The surest way to get upside down with the utilities is to make them go ride out twice for the same job because of delays or the design change, we got to redo it or whatever. That is the surest way to get upside down with people because they'll do the surveys, they'll do it once, they'll give good estimates, and they want to be done with that. They don't want to have to do the same job twice. And so the closer you can get to the detailed design for the make ready, the better off you're going to be. But that has time implications on its own.
I don't
I'll
disagree.
echo exactly. Everything that Brian just said is spot on. At WEC, there's no room and capacity in the line worker.
And there's going to be a bunch of AOT projects this construction season, just like usual, and there's going to be a bunch of non-CUD telecom projects as well that are going to come in from the telcos that are out there already.
And so, can I just ask, Christine? I don't understand what you're worried about. Let me tell you what I think I'm hearing. So, and what I think I'm hearing from the CUDs and seeing. So, I think they're asking for engineering and design dollars, we're funding that, and then make ready on that engineering and design. And so I'm not sure what you're talking about in terms of detailed design. Are you talking about like the very specific, I'm not sure what you, I don't know what you mean.
It gets down to the issue that you may have missed the conversation, which you probably were fortunate, but what we've got this problem where the CUDs need to put in the make-ready pole applications as soon as possible.
That's right.
Well, they're doing that from what was a high-level design, a route design, not the detailed design. Can be significant changes between the high-level design and the route design. For example, you do your high-level design all from GIS. You don't do any field observations. In the detailed design, you're doing ground truthing and field observation. They're going to say, look, we're not going to run I can think of examples where you've got, terrible rights of way. So you say, we're going to take this route instead of that route because it's going to be significantly less expensive construction.
Yeah.
Well, but meanwhile, you're going to be paying for the make ready on those poles that ran through that route that you chose not to go on. So there's going to be differences between the detailed design and the high level design. The make ready to a pole application is $9 a pole for GMP. Make ready is, there's call it 25 poles per mile, right? So what are we saying? 9 times 25 is, $250.
Yeah.
You have $250 a mile for the application, but $8,000 a mile is for the make ready. So you're going to be doing make ready on mileage that you don't need to pay for. And then where you go back to the utility and say, oh, I'm sorry, that's not the route we chose. We chose this route. So let me put in these pole applications and then start the process over. I'm not so concerned about the waste of money. That's
Although we should be, don't say that, yeah.
Well, I'm not as concerned.
That's not your priority.
That's not my priority. Thank you. Yeah. But it's not the priority really becomes the labor resources that we've wasted with the electric utilities.
And time.
Time, right. Which is.
So I mean,
Well, what is the opposite? So what would you rather be doing? And tell me about the time difference between what you would rather be doing and what we're funding.
I don't think there's going to be any time difference because it depends on us. But what we arrive at, which I'm not sure whether we threw this out or not. But the idea being, fund the make ready applications as part of the first pre-construction grant. Then come in after your design work is done and fund the make ready. Have I got that right, Brian?
Yeah. So what would happen in between those two applications?
You'd be doing the detailed design.
Who is
work.
you?
The CUDs.
And so why can that not be happening in the process that we're using right now? Why can we not be like?
Because what we heard from the CUDs was that we got it. Well, no, we can't because it's not from the CUDs. It's from the utilities have a requirement that you turn it around in 2 weeks. Otherwise, you might have to start over.
Right.
So that creates the pressure to pay for it, even though we may not have done the design work.
So, but Laura's question is different. All of these grant applications for pre-construction funding should include high-level design, detailed design, pole applications, and make ready.
For pre-construction?
That's what I'm hearing. Well, because we need to get on one side of this fence or the other. Because
we just approved an application with literally an executive director and legal services for $600,000.
I know, I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying it could be up to this because what the push is on the other side, you're worried about wasting funding and time and physical resources on the utility companies based on the fact that there isn't a detailed design. So the question is, should we be prioritizing detailed design sooner?
No, again, this gets into the bucket to me of, our job is not to tell them how to do their job. Our job is to oversee the job they're doing.
But Christine
Christine
is
always-
telling them how
I
to
know,
do their
and that's our
job.
job is to manage the tension. Christine's an engineer. She's always going to err on the side of more information and more detailed information and more prescription because she has strong ideas on how this should be done. Our job is to then balance that with staying aligned with our job is to oversee, not do.
But rather than driving the applicants crazy, perhaps we should decide.
Well, I like all of it. I think it's, you're right. I agree that. I think this really is a board decision. And I'm, I apologize for being so firm because that was really probably inappropriate. The point is, stake the position. None of this is clean. So we have to make a decision, hearing all the factors. Board makes a decision. This is not a case of purity here.
And you have a comment?
Yeah, so I'm also sensitive to that same point, but I think where we left was a good compromise to allow them to get rolling, get underway. There might be a small percentage that is filed and doesn't actually get built on, but I think it's pretty small. And I think it'll end up in those areas where the wire centers do not overlap nice and neatly with the rest of the territory of the CUD. We'll see. But for the sake of moving things quickly, I think the compromise that we have here affords that. And I know that with the team, the staff is looking for problems here, so that I think that I'm anticipating the continued communication between the staff and the CUD will help mitigate this risk that is out there, because it's something that Christine is certainly looking for, and I'm certain that the CUDs don't want to waste that either. So I have a high degree of optimism here that it won't.
Yeah, well, I think, as long as you're all in agreement, I certainly can support the decision. And, yeah, because
It's come up in every meeting, so it's good to get on one
Yeah,
side of this
so-
or the other.
Yeah, so we can close this down here as we're going. I think what Dan's saying is, okay, well, Rob and I will pay attention. We'll work with the CUDs, try to make best use of the funds, but we're not taking a firm position here.
I also, I'm cognizant of the importance of making sure this flywheel moves, because we've given them filing money, but they don't have the construction piece. So there's more work to be done here in closing that.
Yes.
Yeah. Could we have a bio break?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
All right, let's take a 5-minute break. So we'll resume a few minutes after 3. 3.
Microphone is on. We're recording, so.
Okay, so we completed 3 applications for CUDs. The next item on our list of per agenda is.
Actually, wait, is Dan back? I don't know if he's back.
There's not going to be an executive session and talk about pre-purchase and all of that. There was a PowerPoint presentation.
We were moving that more towards the end, I thought.
What's not on the agenda?
Well,
Yeah,
It
we
was.
changed the
12:20.
agenda before you
Oh,
came in.
okay.
Does anyone want to, here's Dan, maybe?
All right, but let's
There
just
we go.
tee this up. Let's keep moving here. 304. Okay, this one is discuss pre-purchase recommendation from staff, executive
Oh,
session.
that's it.
Oh, do we want to do that now, or do we want to do the budget and save the executive sessions to the end?
Is there a presentation on the budget
Well, I'm going to be talking from your, it's in your,
in the one in the
Okay,
budget?
let's, I'm fine to do budget if that's what staff's wishes are. And then we'll go executive session all together. Take it away, Christine and Rob.
okay, so if you turn, unfortunately, we didn't paginate this, but if you turn to the, your budget package, which is,
2 of 11.
yeah, 2 of 11. Basically, what we did is took the total amount available, we took all of our total funds available, subtract the operation budget, and that becomes your capital budget, because we're paying for our operations out of capital, out of the total allotment that we have. So if you look at the capital budget, you see there's a figure of 153 million, 450 million available. And then your expenses, the VCB budget is not really a capital expense. Sorry about that. But we have a budget of $1.5 million there for the running of this board. I should call these Act 71 expenses, maybe. So we've defined the other one. We've got the pre-construction, which is, why did I have 35 million in pre-construction?
It was 30.
I thought it was
But
30.
you're anticipating the increase you're
No,
going to
yeah,
have.
well, thank you. Benefit of the doubt. So let's go through the operational budget. So if you take that Act 71, that becomes the first line of the operational budget, which is on the next page. And then we have Northern Borders Regional Commission. We have $1 million grant, but we're going to request changing that grant to $333,000 a year so that we can fund a broadband project developer, which we'll talk about in a moment. And we also have a universal service fund for $700,000. So we have a total of $2.53 million for an operational budget. And then the expenses, which I've detailed out in each one of your pages, is listed here. So if you want, what we will do is we will go through each one of these sheets and go through the cost for personnel, cost for equipment. Does that work for you? Okay. All right, so go to your next page of personnel. So you've already approved the first 3. You approved the grants administrator, executive director, general counsel, and executive assistant. We're talking about adding a project manager to manage it with as a full-time person.
Yeah, so just to jump on that really quick, the idea is that there's a lot of special projects that we need assistance that Christine and I are working on right now, but it would be better if we had some specific support to assist with that.
Yeah.
That comes to everything from materials procurement to workforce to affordability to any of these other projects that you need additional support for.
Yeah,
So you've referred to fiber engineers, is that the same?
No,
Past meetings?
no, we've pulled that out